Welcome everyone to the first Counter Protocol of Light event. This event is focused around the ceremonies and rituals of the Super Bowl halftime show 2015. Together with Deborah Pietsch, I'm Scott Bartle, and from Wake Up Shift is Happening TV, we would like to welcome our panel presenters. We have today Sean Stone, Freeman Fly, Janie Hanshaw, Patrick Henningson, Sarah Adams, David Nazir, and Mark Passio, and hopefully I've said their names correctly there. Firstly, as an introduction, I'll hand it back to Deb, who is going to give us a bit of a context and introduction to where we want to go with this Counter Protocol of Light event, and then we'll open up and let it flow. Yours, Deb.
Thank you. So, thank you for being here. First of all, for the people that are viewing, and also to the amazing panel, the amazing roundtable of guests that we have here today. And as Scott was saying, this is the first event that is a Counter Protocol of Light event. And so, as we begin, I thought it was important for us to set the context to what is going on and why we even were guided to create this show and this event. One of the things that is important to note is that this didn't just come out of like our decision to just come out and talk about this. Because of being telepathic and the daily communication that we do, especially that I do with our guides, that this is part of a strategy that Scott and I have been working on behind the scenes very diligently for the last year, that is very multidimensional strategy to support humanity, and to support humanity at a time right now where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of disinformation, and I'm even going to go so far as to say that our awakening has been hijacked. And we refer to that as the designed assault against humanity's awakening. And so about a month ago, in one of our daily tune-ins with our team that we talk to every day, and it came in that for us to start doing counter protocol events, and that the Super Bowl would be the first one. And so that's how this came about. So a couple things just to presence here is that this is experiential transformational media. You as the viewer are here to engage however you choose. And we're going to ask you to be accountable to whatever you are experiencing. This subject and the subjects that we're going to touch upon today are vast and often considered taboo, and are also often not ever really covered in a full context of connecting the dots of how these are affecting every aspect of our daily lives. So we're going to endeavor to bring forth to you that there is, as we're weaving the information, that there is the awareness of the macrocosm, and then also the awareness of the microcosm of how this can and may be affecting every aspect of your daily life. We're talking about the flow of resources, we're talking about abundance, we're talking about the divine feminine. There's all sorts of the entertainment industry, the music industry, the film industry, media, mainstream media. So my invitation, our invitation to you is to be really accountable to what you're experiencing as we start to talk about these. You may have emotional charges, you may have beliefs that get triggered. And so it's an opportunity for you to engage with yourself and even journal or write down some of the things that you might be being triggered by. The point of our communication with all of this is not to be right about anything. It is here. We are here to provide a context of information and insights, and then to connect dots that you may not be connecting, that you may not have connected. so that you can have aha moments, and that you can even distinguish between beliefs and programs that might not be serving you in your highest good. So we're asking for you to engage, to have an open heart, to receive, and to also, one of the questions we're going to leave you with as we begin is, what is your relationship to free will? If you haven't thought about free will as a conscious, and having a conscious relationship with free will, perhaps today might be the start of that. And that as we're engaging with this conversation today, which is focused around the Super Bowl, which we've come to understand and be aware that this is it's probably the largest public ceremony ritual events that we have right now. And to understand, without having an emotional charge or judgment, how and why this is going on and how it's affecting our lives. And so the opportunity and the invitation is for you to engage with your free will. And now when we go into the halftime show, we're going to enter into the experiential part of this. Now, those of you that have already experienced the activations or the clearings that Scott and I do, you're going to be familiar with it. We're going to guide you through everything, including talking through the clearing, talking through the activation. But you are encouraged to engage with your free will and your higher self to bring forth and invoke what is in your highest good. So I just thought that it was important for us to set the stage and to set the context as we delve into some pretty amazing subjects, and some of it is going to get pretty dark. So what we get to do is we get to shine the light on it. We get to hold the space of love, and if this resonates with you, that we are proclaiming from this day forward that this is a planet of love, and that whatever is, and that we are conduits of that love. We are conduits of the light. We are beings of light, and that we are standing in a collective consciousness and proclaiming that this planet is a planet of love, and that anything that is not in alignment with that gets to have a checks and balance, and that we are here to level the playing field and to bring things back into balance. So thank you for being here. Thank you for playing with us, dancing with us, and let the games begin.
Thanks, Deb. Yep. Okay, got the ball. So, thank you for that, and bear with us as well as some of the, we have the odd technical challenge here. We'll endeavour to keep it ticking along quite nicely. Perhaps we start this one. We've got quite a panel of presenters here. Sean Stone, host of the alternative media show Buzzsaw, is joining us, and let's perhaps start with Sean. One of the things you mentioned before the show was just as a bit of a humorous point of, okay, who do you think is going to win this game from the perspective of the symbology as perhaps an opener to what we're talking about. Sean, do you want to say a couple of words on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, obviously, to sort of assess people's ability to decode, right? I don't consider myself an expert when it comes to decoding, but I'm obviously very interested by the nature of symbols. And so, obviously, the choice of Seahawks versus Patriots, I would say just from the media point of view, we've seen a lot of the notion around the deflate gate with the Patriots, right? The fact that they cheated in some capacity in their last game. So it's almost as though they're setting the Patriots up in a certain sense to lose, because they can't really win honorably, you know, regardless. If they win now, they still cheated to get there, right? And so they almost in a sense have to lose. That's kind of the way that I see it. So I do predict the Seahawks winning this game. But I'd be curious to know what everyone else thinks, more from like the codes and the symbols of the Seahawks and Patriots and what those teams represent, colors-wise, names-wise, you know, historically, that kind of thing.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I've got one point to make on to add to what Sean said regarding the Seattle Seahawks. Their logo is a Seahawk, and that's based on an Inuit Pacific Navajo tribe representation of that bird. So again, this add to the symbolism. That might just be background, Sean, but it is interesting. And looking at the Patriots symbology, what that symbolizes as well. That's an aspect that we often overlook.
I think
Okay,
it's going
so,
to be.
oh, sorry, Sarah, one second.
I want to jump in there.
I was going to introduce Patrick. For those who haven't seen Patrick's work, he was the founder of the 21stcenturywire.com website. He's appeared on RT News, written for The Guardian, Global Research, InfoWars. So he's been in the alternative media scene for quite some time. And Patrick, if you want to add anything more to that, and then I'll jump over to Sarah there.
No, that's right. I might disagree with Sean's prediction on who's going to win. Because the Patriots cheated to get there, then you'd want to reward the evil party. So I'm going to back the New England Patriots, Sean.
Sarah, do you want to jump in from there?
That's a very interesting point you just brought up there. But you know what, it's interesting looking at these Seahawks because I brought them up on my phone here, and the colors is very interesting because you've got the New England Patriots, by the way, that have red and blue, which so is the red and blue is bloodlines. And then you have the Seattle Seahawks, which like I said, I think it represents the Horus figure or the Christ figure. And I think also that England, the New England, with New England, like I said, England has the lineage of the ancient Egyptian bloodlines who came over here to England, and the United States is all built in such a manner on a the Freemasons built the United States so they could access all the points instead of having to travel around the world and access them. They built it all into the United States, which was amazingly brilliant. And then now I think with the different teams from the different states, they're according to different places in the world. It's accessing different portals whenever they play and things like that. With the Seahawks, I definitely think it is Horus, and they did win last year. And this year, I think that they might win.
Okay, so Sarah, thank you. And as you can probably tell, Sarah has got quite a bit of background on some of the symbology there. So we'll hear more from Sarah shortly. One of the things I wanted to just move the context back to, we've got a ceremony and ritual that's taking place right before our eyes at halftime. The reason we're saying this is for the last how many years we've seen that exact thing. The videos are out there on the internet.
If you get a chance, I wanted to add to that part in regards to the game today, to the symbology of the game. If you want to go back to that, I believe the Patriots are going to win. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to win this year, and it's all to bring on the controversy. Super Bowl games are developed to foreshadow future events. What they do is they put two teams together who are there to compete against each other, and usually whatever standards occur and whatever variables are within the game is what usually transpires for the following year. Now, one of the interesting things that Sarah said was in regards to the colors of the teams, and one of the things that I did notice is that the Seattle Seahawks do have a common color that was used a lot this year, and that was during the Ebola crisis. Everything was fluorescent and green and blue, and now with the situation, they don't have to say that Tom Brady cheated if he's not going to win. So in other words, the controversy needs to occur. But what it's only been is always a dynamic that occurs during the Super Bowl that doesn't occur in any other sport. It's not only the biggest television audience in the world, but it also provides a halftime show, and these halftime shows have been kind of crazy within the past, I would say, 6 to 7 to 8 years, trending back over to Michael Jackson. But the most important part of what I see is that when it comes to sporting events, when it comes to like the Super Bowl, there's only been 3 Super Bowls in which both teams represent an animal mascot. It's always some kind of, it could be a dolphin, it could be you know, like a Seahawk, which is similar to a seagull, but it's hardly that it's Seahawks against the Ravens. It will always be a historical figure within that line, and there's a reason that they follow that trend into the year after the ritual performed. If you, we can go back to that, I guess, when we start moving forward. But there are a couple of examples of prior Super Bowls that are just very genuine. That you cannot miss out on that. It really.
Yeah, there certainly is, David. There's plenty of those examples in those prior ones, and that's probably well. Firstly, for the viewers, that was David Nazier, and again, we'll hear more from David soon.
I apologize.
No worries. I'm just trying to work my way through everyone so that we share with the listeners who we've got here. So, for example, Freeman Fly is joining us here. He has done a number of videos which really go into detail on some of what's going on behind the scenes here. The thing I wanted to introduce to the viewers here is we've got a ritual event that's going on right before our eyes that for a large amount of the population, some of the 100+ million viewers, that is the advertised statistic of who engage with this Super Bowl and the halftime show, is that this ritual and ceremony is taking place right before our eyes and is designed and intended to utilize sinister energies and for you to contribute as well. And the aspect that I'm inviting you to consider is that your free will is being abrogated. Unless the ticket that you got for your participation, for turning up for the Super Bowl or watching this on TV or at the live event, said, we're going to utilize your energies and we're going to channel it through a celebrity who has a demonic possession and we're utilizing it for a sinister agenda, then what was taking place hasn't been advised to you, hasn't been disclosed. So, Freeman, if I'll cross over to you in a sec, where we're going here is that we've got this event that really is abrogating people's free will. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
Well,
My control source for you.
don't go away right now. We're on camera. Yeah, the entire situation at this point is social engineering, and honestly, Jamie wrote the book on social engineering, and I wish you were over here. To express this very idea that we are sitting in this situation where we have a dominant force controlling the media that is then putting this information into us and coercing the society into what is really blatantly a satanic society once you understand the tenets of Satanism. And that is not such a big story to try and unveil in this situation, but what you end up seeing on top of the social engineering aspects of this situation is the occult rituals that are performed within these situations. And so Jamie and I have been unveiling those type of situations for a decade now on freemantv.com, showing over and over again the occult aspects of these rituals, like we're going to see with Katy Perry and Lenny Kravitz at the halftime show, to the point where we had started to express to the public the different ideals and understanding inside of Satanism and the Ordo Templi Orientis, one of the main magical orders that infiltrated Hollywood and the music industry. You will find all of the musicians members of this magical order, the OTO. And then we will show you through their own works and through the own magic practices how these signs and symbols work and what their intents are. And you'll really be blown away when you start to recognize these occult symbols and signs that are becoming so blatant now that people are going, oh, they're Illuminati this, Illuminati that. Well, Jamie and I have sought out desperately and very determinatively to re-explain and de-occult those signs, symbols, and magic rituals that are being performed. So as a classic example of a satanic ritual happening at a Super Bowl, we go back to the Madonna. When she performed at the Super Bowl, she called it a 33-minute sermon. Now, Madonna is a high priestess Kabbalist. Okay, Kabbalism is the magic that is being practiced in this situation, and she is one of the high priestesses. So when she came out on the Super Bowl, she said that she was performing a 33-minute sermon, and within this sermon, she depicted herself as these numerous gods. And I don't know if you have that image that I gave you there. She displayed what is known, according to these magical orders, the mark of the beast. Now, most people don't have any idea what the mark of the beast looks like to a magical order. And it's actually the X-Men logo, the Xbox logo, or Macintosh's new operating system logo. It is the O and the X. I can show it to you on the back of a Satanist's head. You know, this is not something, and Crowley of the OTO, Aleister Crowley, would actually brand that O and X into his scarlet women, the ritual women that they would use in these magical practices. And that mark of the beast was displayed by Madonna on the stage so many times that I could barely count. Now, those that were following Freeman TV, they knew immediately when they saw Madonna displaying these signs and symbols. And so, yeah, it's there, it's intentional, it's purposeful, and even the actors and actresses, or the performers such as Madonna, know exactly what their intent is when they're performing such rituals.
Right. Now, that's good. I got that image up on the screen there. Now, the thing you mentioned earlier on in that piece was the tenets of Satanism. Now, if I can jump over to Mark, I recall you did an interview with Vinnie Eastwood back in 2012, where you were describing those tenets literally as the inversion of everything that we see in society, that the good becomes bad, the right becomes wrong. And like I think Freeman showed in one of his videos, where Madonna was desensitizing the population to lesbianism and homosexuality. Did you want to mention about those tenets of Satanism there?
Absolutely. Satanism is something that most people don't understand in the slightest bit, insofar as they've been conditioned to believe it has something to do with the worship of Christian archetypal imagery, such as the Christian devil. And this isn't really what modern-day Satanism is about. Modern-day Satanism is an ideology that is lived in one's life. It's a set of overarching belief systems, which you could simply refer to as tenets, or foundational principles in their belief, pillars of their belief system, if you will. The first tenet is simply that all you concern yourself with is yourself, your own comfort, your own creature comforts, your own self-preservation, and your own advancement. That is what we see generally widespread in all of society. Me thinking. Thinking that is purely selfish and oriented towards service to self only, without any compassion for the widespread suffering that is going on in our society and throughout the world. This first tenet is taken into a hyperdrive by Satanists, you could say. It's the first tenet is basically that self-preservation is the highest aspiration of the individual and should be practiced, and one should concern themselves with it at all times and places. Do whatever you have to get ahead on someone else. Do whatever you have to get a leg up on other people, regardless of whose rights or freedoms you may have to step on in order to do so. If it's right for you, then it's right. If it's wrong for you, then it's something you should steer clear of. That leads right into the second tenet of Satanism, which is moral relativism. Moral relativism is also extremely widespread in society. It's the belief that there is no such thing as objective principles of right and wrong behavior that are actually inherent to nature, that exist in reality, and that man can just arbitrarily decide right and wrong for himself, based upon his own likes, preferences, and whims. And this is what dark occultists of all kinds believe, that, you know, if this is something that will work out with us on top, then we're going to do it. And that makes it right, you know, because it worked out for us. And if it's something that we don't benefit from, then we see that as wrong. You know, that's something that's wrong in our eyes. Moral relativism is extremely widespread because most people in our culture have bought into this satanic tenet and believe that that right and wrong is a construct that exists in the minds of man, and we can decide based on our likes and preferences what right and wrong behavior are in any given culture at any given time. The third tenet of Satanism is social Darwinism. And this is an extension of the other two tenets of self-preservation being the highest law and right and wrong being able to be arbitrarily decided by mankind. Social Darwinism is the idea, it comes out of you know, a Darwinistic evolutionary theory about survival of the fittest. And this is just taken into the human realm, and since mankind is seen by Satanists as being just another animal, essentially, you know, they look at that it is right and just for the most ruthless of humanity to come out on top because their genes, their DNA got them to that point and made them the fittest in society, and so therefore they should basically rule over everyone else. This leads into the slippery slope of the fourth pillar or tenet of Satanism, which is eugenics. It's something that many people haven't studied and aren't aware of and don't know what it is, but they really need to become firmly aware of it because it's going on in our culture. It has been for thousands of years, and the people who are really in control of our society firmly believe in eugenics and practice it. Eugenics is the idea that those who have been gifted with somehow this idea of the superior genetics because they've come to rule the roost of society, if you will, through their superior intellect and genetics, that ruling class then gets to determine who can breed and who may not, or in other words, who may live and who must die. Those are the essential four tenets or main pillars of satanic ideology, and I would suggest that not just dark occultists who are in hierarchical satanic networks and who are in positions of being in the ruling class in society are the only ones who subscribe to those belief systems. I would suggest that hundreds of millions of people worldwide are actually followers of satanic tenet systems of belief, and they don't even realize it. They are Satanists. They have been indoctrinated into believing in satanic ideology without even understanding that that's what their ideology is.
I'd like to jump in here before we go too far and presence a few things with Mark. Because so much is of what is being shared here is also an experiential aspect of our own experiences. So Mark, you are speaking from a place of having been involved with the Church of Satan, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Deborah. I formerly was involved in my youth in dark occultism, Satanism in particular, because of my verbal espousal of satanic principles and tenets earlier in my life through writing and through music. I was appointed to a priesthood in an organization on the west coast of the United States known as the Church of Satan by the then high priest, who is now deceased, named Anton LaVey. LaVey recognized some of the work that I was doing in spreading satanic thought and ideology in society in my youth, and he appointed me to a priesthood in that organization. I then became involved in Satanism in a wider sense, not just through the Church of Satan organization, but satanic groups, networks, grottos, which is what they call their covens. in my entire tri-state area, and became acutely aware that there were Satanists who were in positions of influence and power who were taking part in these grottos or covens and taking part in satanic rituals in this entire tri-state area, that were in positions of power and influence in every single solitary social institution and walk of life that you could possibly think of, including education, arts, media, law enforcement, judges, politicians, bankers, lawyers, doctors, school teachers. You name the institution, even, of course, music and entertainment. Every single social institution and walk of life that you could think of, there were Satanists involved in it at high-level positions of influence and power. And they had been put there by this hierarchical network of dark occultists who understand how the human psyche works and the human motivations work, and understand the hidden or spiritual laws of nature, and are essentially trying to overthrow the real spiritual laws that exist in this world, in the universe, so that they can essentially rule the earth and turn its people into nothing but slaves and keep them in a state of enslavement forever.
Exactly. Okay, and one more point before we move on. This is for the viewers that I just want to weave into what we're saying here. What we're sharing, what Mark is indicating and sharing here is that if when you think about the way that the Satanists think, if they are out for themselves and only out for themselves, and that they want to be at the top of the pyramid, and if these are the people that are right now in high position of authority in every walk of our life, in every institution, and that includes law enforcement, judges, entertainment industry, if it is their intention, and this is all deception, this is all being hidden, this is a religion that is, you have to be indoctrinated and invited to be in, correct? So, and the network is vast. And so when we say that, and here's the other thing too, our world is upside down right now. There is such a level, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say there's such a level of insanity, because the natural laws of flow of resources, the natural laws are not flowing. So we want to look at why, what is going on, what reality is being created. So connecting the dots and really looking at the vastness of the network across the planet. And what has occurred is that and Mark and the rest of us, we can get into also even the symbology of the dollar bill and the all-knowing eye on the top of the pyramid. But I just wanted to weave into the context of what we're doing right now, the vastness and why we're bringing this out. That's just the tangible, physical people. Then we're going to get into also the non-physical energies that are conjured through these ceremonies and rituals and the gateways that are opened and things like that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deb, one thing Mark mentioned there was the word ruthless. What we're dealing with really here is, as you said, a ruthless agenda to really control people. And so perhaps this is the topic that I'll throw open to the panel here, is we hear a lot of people say, I'm not going to give that my energy. I don't want to look at that because it'll give my energy to it. And what we're bringing here in a very neutral way is we are addressing these issues so that we can actually confront this issue. So who would like to jump in here and address the aspect about giving something its energy versus ignoring it?
I'd like to chime in, Scott, if it's okay. I think when, at least when it comes to contemporary new age information era that we're living in now, you know, when a lot of the in regards to Satanism come from Aleister Crowley, of course, through the rock and roll age. They tend to be it's bringing. So I agree with I think it was Freeman who said and yourself, people are doing these things and they're not even aware of what they're doing. I'm a firm believer that just because you don't understand the science or the engineering of a subtle. So in other words, sometimes we engage in daily practices and daily routines that we ourselves believe that we're doing good, and then when we actually enter it, we perpetuate what's bad. And I'll give an example. If you notice, every time there's Christmas, every time there is a moment that people need God, they go to church. After that, 364 days pass by and no one goes anywhere. But that one time that people seek the faith, all of a sudden we seek the assistance of God. People don't understand that there are certain rituals that are embedded within even church or religion that themselves helpful, but in the end actually perpetuate the state that you're already in. So if you're already in a bad state or a depressive state and you're seeking some kind of higher authority to try to assist you out of it, a lot of people get. My understanding is when we do what we and believe that the majority of us are not really paying attention to our actions, the majority of us are paying attention to our reactions. So in other words, not much of what we have is our own, I believe. I believe we don't know who we are, but we know who we are around other people. So I think when you mesh both together, religion and spirituality, and then all of a sudden people start embarking into that spiritual awakening, they start realizing these little, I would say, these little quirks, these little gaps of what really goes on. Because if you really actually go to church, or I'm a Catholic, if you go to the Catholic Church, and it's a lot of standing, kneeling, sitting, and a lot of it is energy. It's just like if you're taking a yoga class and the energy is being transmitted to the yoga master, because the master is on top, just like the priest is on top of the church. So a lot of people don't understand the flow of energy, but a lot of people understand without the understanding are still perpetuating what today I believe is the insanity of our world.
Is that cool?
That flow that you just mentioned there, the flow of energy of even attending like a yoga class to we've got today, is the actual a celebrity standing up there on stage and how many million people channeling their energy towards that celebrity. And I think we're watching.
Yeah.
Sorry, one sec. The words that were actually used by Beyonce in 2013 were something like, "Come on, everyone, put your hands out. Let me feel your energy."
Yeah, and literally, she was given the power of the people, and then we wonder why things happen so much, such in an abrupt way. Like all of a sudden, we are seeing a lot of things that occur within the game of football. But to me, it's more of an allegory or some kind of an analogy of what's to come. And like the best example I could give in response to the Beyonce is when the lights went out, and they went out for 32 or 33 minutes, and everybody was talking about how she pulled out, the triangle with the eye, and now that means she is part of the Illuminati, and I'm actually one. I don't believe these people become part of anything. I think these people are just being used, So in other words, like they're even within the lower ranks, there are ranks. And the way I looked at it is when these children and these little girls or these little boys are watching Beyonce going on stage and doing these sexual acts, they mimic that in real life, and then that perpetuates within the community. And sadly, it's always a community that only has a lower socioeconomic status. You know, it's always the same group. So it's not a surprise that racial division is occurring, because you know it's not as the same way that it wasn't a surprise that Bruno Mars, who happens to be biracial, you know, and his name being Mars in last year, and all of a sudden you see caution symbols everywhere while he was performing, was there because every act is a foreshadow event, or what Shakespeare would say, beware of the Ides of March. Whatever occurs in the theme of the Super Bowl is the agenda for the coming year.
So what we're talking about here is this programming. Now, perhaps this is a good opportunity to explore some of the aspects of how we as a general populace are conditioned. And we are conditioned in some way to even look at the Super Bowl as, oh, what do you mean? That's just entertainment. And you'll hear a vast amount of the population go, well, what are you guys reading into it, you conspiracy nuts? And yet we're really looking at...
There's something I've been wanting to add all along. As we go to begin to look at what we're going to see tonight on the Super Bowl halftime with Katy Perry, what we have to realize is that this is far deeper, as Mark was saying, than most people even realize. To the point that when you start to look into these occult organizations, even the Nazis, you recognize that this theory of give me a second, it's going to leave my brain right as I'm throwing it out there, genetic memory is occurring. Okay, so the Nazis, this is why they did so many twin tests, to understand the genetics of twins because of this genetic memory. Current studies have just recently come out proving genetic memory. Okay, so this means that we're picking up information from our past generations and we're carrying that over. So in the 70s, it was discovered by the Stanford Research Institute. Now, Stanford Research, they're hooked up with the CIA, they're Tavistock, they're the ones setting the agenda, setting the programming for the agenda. And Stanford Research Institute saw that there was a major shift in consciousness coming over the millennium. And in the 70s, they sought out to usurp this awakening and utilize the genetic memory within us to shift this. So some of the things that we most likely will see due to the results of the Stanford Research Institute experiment, what we will see with Katy Perry and Lenny Kravitz in this Super Time Half Pole show, or whatever, we're not allowed to say the words, the big game, is you will be seeing Egyptian symbolism and Freemasonic iconography that they realized they could use these two powers to shift humanity in the direction they wanted to shift because it's written into our very DNA. And so you will see like Pink performing in a Masonic garb as if she were an entered apprentice into the Masonic rituals. You will see Lady Gaga performing in these situations with blood rituals and such. But what we'll see tonight with Katy Perry will most likely feed into the military-industrial complex, because that is one of the major things that we're dealing with is the princess warrior programming, the football player cheerleader programming, the princess in the toy aisle, the transformer in the boy aisle, the pink and the blue aisles. All of these things are conditioning to condition the children into the mindset that's necessary, and then using our own genes and DNA against us by using this ancient iconography to alter our very consciousness. So.
I'd like to add, before we move on, Scott, we haven't officially introduced Jamie. So, Jamie, could you please introduce yourself and say hello?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jamie Hanshaw, and a lot of our work focuses on the creation of culture and social engineering, and so I've written 2 books about what all these things he's been talking about. High-profile rituals is what we're watching today. Is what we would call a high-profile ritual. Could be anything from a war to a award show or something like that.
Or Barack Obama performing at the throne of Zeus.
Right, even that. So yeah, this is kind of the category that we're putting these events in. Even a high-profile ritual could be like 9/11 as well. So I'm wondering what we're going to see from Katy Perry in a couple minutes. I want to think that it's have to do with royalty, maybe?
Royalty programming,
Yeah.
diamonds,
Yeah.
military-industrial complex, and maybe we might even see a dark horse of the apocalypse.
If we're lucky, maybe some Egyptian stuff or some...
Yeah, we'll see the Stanford's research influence on
I
this
don't
for
know
sure.
if she would go as far as she did at the Grammys with the whole witchcraft thing, you know. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, just because of the Grammys and because of these rituals that we're discussing, I want to give you just a little bit of an example again. When we had the Grammys and Whitney Houston died in the bathtub, okay, the night before Whitney Houston died, her daughter drowned in that same bathtub but was revived. Same condition. She was on pharmaceutical drugs. She was rushed to the hospital. She was brought back to the hotel for the Grammys to see her mom, but then Whitney died in the very same bathtub the very next night, right? Yes. So now you got a mother-daughter water ritual concerning in this situation. And right now we're about to move into the Grammys. We're about to move into this ritual again. And what happens? Whitney Houston's daughter drowns in the bathtub again, right? And this just occurred last week. She was induced into a coma. And when you start to look into these magic rituals, you realize like Eminem was actually in a coma and in a state of death, and then came out as Slim Shady. And this is when he became the super celebrity. When they go into these situations, there is possession that occurs. And the connection that Jamie writes about in Weird Stuff of voodoo and magic music rituals, you'll understand the possession. And that eye in the pyramid triangle that you're seeing from Beyonce and Jay-Z, this is, if I pull out any one of these magical books off my shelf, this is the triangle of manifestation. And it is exactly what David was saying, that it is the invocation or evocation of an entity into the person or into the self or the watching audience. That is what that is. It is, we can show you straight from a magical book that is exactly what that symbol is. So it is our job to go and decipher all of these things from the occult ritual books that are actually there, so that you know that it's not just simple symbolism. This is ritual magic being performed in front of you. Now this is a book called Modern Magic.
Freeman, I got a quick question for you, because in terms of deciphering coding, there's two things to make it really apparent for the audience. Last year with the Super Bowl, there was another death on the eve of the Super Bowl, and that was Philip Seymour Hoffman, right? And ironically, or not, the name Philip means lover of horses. And of course, who was playing last year were the Broncos against the Seahawks, and the Broncos were the losing team in that event. And simultaneous with that time period, Dark Horse came out, right? The Katy Perry song last year around the same time period. So it was basically saying, look, the white horse of the Broncos is being sacrificed to the Seahawks last year. In terms of the actual overall ritual of the Super Bowl and why it's so important, obviously we've talked now about energies and all these people obviously watching this game, even though, let's be honest, most people aren't rooting for those two teams that are actually in the game. So it's amazing the fact that this is the most watched event in America, the costliest commercials, tremendous amount of energy goes into it. And what's interesting to me is you can look at the name Super Bowl in two ways. One is Supper Bowl, some kind of Supper Bowl, or Superb Owl, which is the owl of the Illuminati. Do you have any take on that?
You're just making me laugh, because when I tried to text Super Bowl, that's what came out was Superb Owl. Yeah, there does seem to be some symbolism in there. I honestly haven't read much into the teams and such. I think it's intriguing, but I can't find a firm science within it. Everything that I do, I focus on the Kabbalistic aspects of it, so that I know that I'm working within the magical realms that they're in. But when the Titans beat the Patriots, to me that did seem symbolic, And when you get into the Titans and what's going on in Nashville, there's a lot of craziness going on back into mind control and all this situation again.
Titans.
I actually wanted to touch on that. If
Giants beat the Patriots. That was big.
Giants. Yeah, same thing. Giants or Titans. No. See, I'm symbolic. I'm not sport.
I wanted to actually touch on that because in regards to last year's Super Bowl, because there's no better baseline than the prior Super Bowls. In other words, when you to do comparisons and make it Super Bowl, the dynamic is that last year, just like Sean was saying, that the white horse is the symbol of the Broncos, there were a lot of coincidences like that were continuous. And if you were to look at not just the Broncos logo, even the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know if everybody remembers when you had Pope, the new Pope, what's his name again? Pope Francis. He has this ritual in which he always has two children on his side, and they let out a dove. And the doves were attacked by a crow and a seagull. I'm not sure if anybody heard about that, but one dove was attacked by two different species of birds, a crow and a seagull. So in terms of the symbolism that plays in the game of football, there's last year was a very important year, because if you come to think about it, the Seahawk is basically an animal that lives in the air and preys on the ground. So just kind of like basically it's giving you our domestic security measures. You know, you were introducing drones into the world.
David,
At the same time, have earthquake, and that will also
David, your video is cutting in and out, and so maybe turn your video off, so that because it's very choppy. We can't actually even understand everything you're saying. And okay, so maybe we'll take this opportunity to move over to Sarah. And
yes,
I just went to check. We're just a few minutes away from the halftime show, so we're going to or the game, or the show of the game. Sarah, I know I can feel energetically you've got definitely things that you'd like to share here. So once you're complete, then I think what we'll do is we'll move into the experiential aspect of this and neutralizing the energy.
Okay, for one, I was looking at Whitney Houston's daughter, and her name is Christina Brown, which is Christborn. It's decoded into Christborn. And she was induced in a coma in Roswell, Georgia, by the way. Now, you know that the Seattle Seahawks, well, Seattle has the Space Needle. And for some reason, it keeps showing, Roswell keeps showing up right now. And I'm not sure why, and it very well, in Arizona, it's not far from Roswell, New Mexico, where that whole thing happened. Also, what's really interesting is the encodes of the tall whites or the grays, and Whitney with Whitney is very, very interesting because of the fact that it's like encoded that she was born white, the white-born one. So that's also very, very symbolic. And what I'm trying to get at here is that I think that this whole thing is tied into the gray factions because of the fact that when I was in Seattle last year at the Super Bowl, I remember whenever they went ahead and had it, I had this very vivid dream that there was a literal portal there. So somehow they're trying to stream stuff to Seattle right now. I'm not sure why they did last year. Now, the sacrifice of the white horse, that was obviously going to happen before the main event. So that's why this year's so important. And it was turned into the dark horse. I think they switched it up. And sorry, I have a cold, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to talk. But it's got to do, I think, with them feeding the gray faction or the gray aliens that are what I could call entities, demons, or whatever you want to call them of old. I think that that's what we're having issues with right now. And they're the ones who are doing these huge energy events and reaping the energy. And when celebrities get up there and they perform, they get a certain amount of that energy, but most of it goes to the hive. that is then used for projection. And I think that there are certain portals around that they use. And Seattle is definitely a huge one with the Space Needle. I'm not sure why the whole Roswell thing is playing into it right now. I wish I could see the halftime and what's playing in the halftime so I could get more information on it. But this definitely has to do with the Greys and them planning some sort of huge event this year.
Okay, one of the things that I just want to recap on what you're saying is one hive energy, and then the other is the harvesting of energy. Now, the harvesting of the energy, if you guys, as the viewers, if you on the page where you're viewing this right now, there are several videos there. And I don't think that we're going to take the time to actually show them here. But we're also going to be adding the Freeman, your Katy Perry video. But there are a couple very important videos there. One of them is the one that it's about 11 minutes. It's with it's about Beyonce, Sasha Fierce, the energy that she possesses, and that one is put out by GoodFight. And then the other one is John Ramirez, who was actually going to be a part of this, and I'm not exactly sure why he's not here. But I'm going to ask the viewers to actually watch those either after this show, because the energy harvesting is this is another part of what we're talking about. What is so important for people to understand is whether you believe in this, whether you focus on it, whether you give it energy, or if you think if you don't give it energy, it's not going to affect you. What I have found, and what we have found in our research, plus the telepathic communication with our guides, is that your energy is being harvested 9 times out of 10 without you even realizing it. So, Sarah, do you want to touch upon that a bit? And then we're going to move into the experiential part here.
I think that this soul on the energy body comes as children, essentially even when the baby's still in the womb, and the aura the aura is weakened through different things, whether through chemicals or through just the different waves they're sending out now, chemtrails, all of that, it affects the baby in the womb. So once the baby is born, it is being accessed. It's already the shields that it usually comes here with to Earth. Because when a soul comes through and incarnates on Earth, it comes with a lot of shields. Those shields are already being taken down in the womb. And so then the child can be accessed and fed upon. And that's creating huge, huge issues right now, because the children definitely are our future, and the children are the foundation of everything. So the children are being energy raped. They're being raped when they're very small. So then, even though physical things may not be happening to them, they're still sensing it. And it's creating the society we have today, which is horrible, and it is all service to self. And it's people without heart and things like that, because their heart energy has already been assaulted when they were little children. They have already been harmed so much on an energetic level that they start to become very, very hard and close off from their higher selves. And I think that with these ceremonies, it's true that it's targeting even very young children. It's to gather very young children's energy, because they like the pure energy. And so I think that what we really, really need to do is we need to start focusing on, sorry, I have a cold, so it's really hard. We need to go ahead and we need to start focusing on counteracting that, especially the children. And I think that if we could just do lots and lots of prayers for them, and if we can just shield them and stuff like that, I think that eventually that we would have a lot of positive outcome from that. Because the serial murders and everything that we have today, it all started when they're children, and the energy attacks that they had on them as children.
Thank you. Okay, Scott, we were just gonna ask Patrick to actually jump in before we go into the experiential aspect of everything.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to underline a couple of basic two-dimensional aspects of this match that we might have skipped over, which everyone here is familiar with, but maybe some of your viewers might not be. From a two-dimensional political standpoint, what we're looking at here, of course, is bread and circuses. So these are gladiatorial games, and they're violent as well in many cases. In the case of football and boxing, very violent gladiatorial games. So gladiatorial games are integral for ruling the masses and have been for a very long time in history. So that's setting the scene of what we have today. If you look at this in biblical terms, I mean, we look in reverence back 2,000, 3,000 years ago as these great events, but they would be looking forward at this spectacle with their jaws somewhere around the ground, you know, in awe, basically. And at halftime, when all eyes are on, and this is when the great ritual takes place. So, you know, what we have is modern mythologies are being created. We've athletes are gods and demigods. Celebrities are gods and demigods. So these we've always had a craving for mythologies, humankind. So this is the latest incarnation that we're getting, and it's important, I think, to have that apocalypse to lift the veil a little bit, so people know what they're looking at first. Then we can obviously peel back and see the wheels within the wheels, as it were, that Mark referred to in what he was describing as well, and Freeman too. There are wheels within wheels. There's systems within systems, layers and sub-layers to wherever we're going here. So it is interesting. We can talk afterwards when we analyze the symbology of the halftime show. We can compare it to other events. We can look at see what they're trying to transmit there. And I'll tell you, I'm about 20 miles away from the stadium right now in Phoenix. It was amazing this morning. It was absolutely zero visibility. They shut down Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, no flights coming in, created absolute mayhem for people coming in for the game, and then all of a sudden it became clear again at about 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Perfectly clear blue sky. So it's really interesting, but and of course Phoenix has connotations as well. And also the advertisements are interesting. Okay, so far I've been keeping track of what ads they've been running, and it's very interesting. These include an ad for a new film called Tomorrowland. We have a TV show called Blacklist, Jurassic World, the dinosaur theme park, Royal Caribbean, Budweiser, Nationwide Insurance, Terminator, a new film called The Allegiance, or TV program about Russian spies, and a Christian right-wing messianic television program about the end of times prophecy called Dig, which had an extended advert just before halftime. So that was really interesting, that putting that idea about rebuilding Solomon's temple in Jerusalem and so forth, that was given prominent positioning in the advertising, and kids with lost limbs walking on prosthetics, and the warrior princess theme, which I believe it was Freeman referred to that earlier. Yeah, there's a game called Warcraft, and that's exactly what they feature, is the warrior princess. So this beautiful supermodel amongst all these heathen warriors. So the symbology, the advertisements is very interesting, and in here we'll find political themes which will be inserted along with the ads. So you have the commercial symbology and the ads and things like that, and you have the political themes which will be subtly woven in to either the advertisements or something in the halftime show. And we have the Peacock, which is NBC. This is the broadcaster carrying the game, and that is the Phoenix, essentially, the Peacock rising from the ashes. And if it's CBS, it would be the All-Seeing Eye, the Central Broadcasting System, or ABC. So all the major networks have a kind of an occultic symbology to them, which everyone's familiar with, most people, I think. So that's really interesting. So there's a lot of visual smorgasbord of various things that we can keep track of and pay attention to. So that we'll see more through halftime.
Awesome. And has the halftime show started yet?
It's 30 seconds left in the first half, and they'll be breaking for some important commercials. So this is like central programming time right now. This is everyone's anticipation will be at a heightened state right before the halftime. wondering what sort of they're going to see and so forth. When you go to these games, they're not that interesting. You can't see what's going on the field. So this is all made for television. Okay, this is all staging. If you go to the games themselves, most people are in the bathroom buying a hot dog or trying to wait in line for a beer. But us watching this on television, we're getting a totally different experience. And those are the majority of the people will be seeing it through the TV. So that's the real experience, through the TV. If you actually go there live to this event, you won't see half of what we're seeing from the television side.
Awesome.
Okay, just one quick thing there before I give it over to Mark. One of the viewers actually had written in about an advertisement they saw on a bus that said countdown to the halftime show. And they noted that it didn't say countdown to the game, it said countdown to the halftime show. And I think it had featured basically a crotch shot of a guy with a guitar on his lap, but you basically looking straight at the crown jewels. Mark, all yours.
Yeah, I'd like to just briefly touch on a couple of the three-dimensional aspects of this event, which I would also term some sort of a mega ritual, a mass ritual for human consciousness to absorb. It's really a psychological testing grounds of many different kinds, this event. You just look at all the people showing up at the stadium and all the police state technologies that are employed, the tracking technologies, the surveillance technologies, biometrics, etc. And this is a ritualistic testing ground, if you will, for all of these, coercive and surveillance technologies. Also, as I believe it was David who started mentioning the commercial aspect of it. There's so much social engineering and mind control inherent in the commercials that are using subliminal and subconscious influence to sell products and services. Also, as was already talked about, the game is a symbolic proxy of warfare. And the participants are soldiers, order followers who take the plays from their commanding officers and then put them into effect on the field of battle symbolically. Again, the support from the female participants, the cheerleaders of the game, etc., are, they're cheering on these symbolic participants of warfare. And that symbolically represents female support in our society for the dominators and the order followers of our society, namely soldiers, that feeds into the whole destruction of the sacred feminine aspect, which I know we want to touch on after the halftime part of this event, because this is all ultimately about a diverting of attention, and what that is doing is placing our focus onto trivial matters, which acts as a redirection of energy that we could better place to do good things in our lives and to awaken people to what's really going on. And that's all about the suppression of care for the real issues of our society. So those are some of really the 3D and higher aspects of this mega ritual that they put into our face every year, constantly re-emphasizing all of these things and keeping it subconsciously in the public's mind set for an entire year.
Fabulous. And yes, Mark, we do want to touch on the whole divine feminine aspect of the destruction of and the destroying of Terra, and then how that plays out with the macrocosm of Mother Earth, all the way down to the female gender, all the way to the feminine energy within the masculine gender. So we're going to circle back after the halftime, after this, I don't want to keep saying halftime show, but after the halftime show, with that and definitely some of the other things as well. Okay, how are we looking there, Patrick? You're following the game. Are we into the ceremony and ritual at this point?
Yeah, I'm induced into a semi-coma state right now. I've been watching it for about an hour, so I might lose you at some point along the way. But yeah, we're going into the halftime very shortly. So the really big, expensive adverts will be before, during, and after the halftime show. So those would be the sort of $2 million for 30-second spots or whatever they charge. I'm not sure. So and a lot of times people anticipate these adverts as much as the game itself. They get more press coverage. Yeah, so it should be coming shortly. They'll run about 10 minutes of ads after the play's finished, which is just finished now.
Oh,
So
good.
about 10 minutes of ads, and then the halftime show starts.
Right.
And there's a whole bit of palaver before that as well, even before that starts. And I think the whole thing's like 45 minutes. So.
And I just want to add to the aspect of the commercials. I used to produce commercials, and this was a huge time of year for the major commercials were for the Super Bowl. And those of us that were in the industry at that time oftentimes would gather for the Super Bowl specifically to watch our commercials. And so they continue, I believe, in the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years or so to expand in the context of what we're talking about with this occult and with the whole theme that we're talking about right now. Sean, were you going to jump in?
No, just clarifying that even though there's only 2 seconds on the play clock or whatever, it's like Patrick said, it's going to take about 10 minutes to get to the actual Katy Perry performance. But I was actually just reminded of one of the best portrayals of the Super Bowl was actually in the film Natural Born Killers. Because as we know, that film was littered with Illuminati symbolism and sort of demonstrations of the mass mind control of culture, and it even has demons and portals, right, flashed into the psychological landscape of the film. And if you recall, the whole setup for Mickey Knox, as the serial killer, to have the interview with Robert Downey Jr.'s character, that takes place at the end of the Super Bowl, right? Like right after the Super Bowl, stick around for this encounter, and that basically leads to this flare up and riot inside the prison and mayhem and the end of the world, and in the context of that story and that film. So I think that was interesting how it was basically showing people, look, it's a culture. That film was basically showing a culture of demon possession in an informal sense, but through the context of media, through the context of commercials and advertising, right? And how it had warped the minds of these two kids, and then sort of their climax of the story and violence and mayhem occurs right after the Super Bowl. So I think that's an interesting thing to point out to people.
Definitely. Scott, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, if we've got a little bit of time before the show, one of the things I wanted to touch on briefly is we mentioned earlier on about the abrogation of our own free will. So I want to do a little bit of an exploration there. One of the tenets that sits at the very core of one's own free will is the individual. Now, from that point, the focus is, and we talk about this in the clearing that we do as well, when you're clearing external energies out of your own field, from that aspect, that the field or the circle, the bubble, the sphere, that is kind of like your space, is yours and yours alone. You own it. Now, what we've been seeing throughout society is a hijacking of the individual electromagnetic sphere or their space. We've got external energies and entities manipulating you, programming you, whether it be by frequencies, mind control techniques, psychotronic methods, poison, all sorts of different ways in which your own free will and your right to exist on this planet as a human being is challenged at every step of the way. So we're looking at, as a fundamental, the starting point of that individual. I wanted to bring it back around and ask a question about this aspect where we say service to self, because often the moral connotation that comes along with that is the aspect of at the detriment of others. Now, what would be the word that you would use to describe the focus upon your own self in the development of your own sphere and the exclusion of those energies and interference that come from external sources to affect us? What would you use to describe that that term where you are actually focused on yourself, and there's no moral association attached to that that affects in a detrimental. What would you, the panel, say to that question?
I'll jump in on that question. I would say that that ultimately represents a poisoned worldview of separation at a fundamental level. You know, seeing the world as me versus everything and everyone else, as fundamentally separate, seeing your own consciousness as fundamentally separate from the consciousness of life on Earth and the universe in general. And I would just call that a poisoned worldview of separation.
Okay. And so when we, as far as the consciousness as we come together, we are uniting in the aspect of all being a part of the same field, if you like. Some would call it the consciousness field, some would call it society, that sort of thing. We all experience that together, and I suppose in what we're witnessing with these rituals is, to some extent, just like Dr. Emoto was showing with the effect that one's intent and consciousness could have on water, and 0% water. What's the label looking like on our forehead at any one time? When you're reading the newspaper, looking at media, and receiving external stimulus, what's the effect?
Who are you asking that question to?
Sorry, I was just throwing that out there.
Okay, I can take that one.
Okay.
Can I take that one?
Go for it.
Okay, so here I've got two pieces of Oregon right here, and that's right about the intent. If I put intent on one and wish good energy to it, I'm charging it with good intent. The problem with these sort of games, they are charging the negative part, because we're in duality. They're charging the negative part of the male, female. They're charging the negative parts of the gods, or whatever you want to call them. And what's happening because of that is that it's bringing more and more dark energy into the world, and it's causing that nobody is charging the good factions. Nobody's charging with intent. Nobody's charging it because they don't know. They think it's just normal to go to these games, to do these things. They don't know that they're giving all of their energy to this stuff, and it's also doing mass amounts of problems on their souls because of that. So the thing is that sorry, I have such a cold. I'm trying to speak. So the thing is that we need to awaken more people to the fact that our intent in simple everyday things is very, very important, because we charge stuff with where we put our energy. We're charging it, and we're either charging it for good or for bad. And I think we're caught in a society where we don't even know anymore. We don't know our core selves. We don't know our souls. We are conditioned to be whatever society tells us, to follow whatever society tells us, and we no longer have connection to our higher self or our true souls. And this is causing us to lose energy, give energy to the wrong factions, and we don't have any self-power in the end, and we're like sheep. And people need to awaken to this, that simple stuff, simple, subtle things program you to lose your energy or to give your energy to it. And it's very, very negative. I was looking at T-shirts the other day that had just different, really not good symbols on them. And it's quite the fad for people to wear these T-shirts, and lots of people want these T-shirts. And I was seeing how it affects the aura, and how when you do that, it makes rips in your aura, and then entities can enter into your aura. So it's very, very interesting how these beings work on very subtle they work on a very subtle platform to trap you. You don't even know you're trapped. You don't even know you're trapped, and you're trapped.
I actually would like to just share at that point, and then Freeman, if you could also jump in here, because this is a great time to also move into the mind control aspect of it. But what Sarah's talking about is a very big part of this. It has to do with the non-physical energies, and the non-physical energies and the entities that are coming into our fields, because many of us have, many people have been knocked off their throne of their I am presence. And as Scott was saying, the abrogation of free will. If you don't have a conscious relationship with free will, and if you are not standing strongly, firmly planted, and alchemically on your I am throne, within your I am presence, there is a high probability that you've got energy and entities in your field that are wreaking havoc with your everyday life. And so what Sarah's talking about is that the imbalance that we're seeing on the planet has a lot to do with how organized this hidden religion is across the planet, networked through even just, you think about the political system, you think that you are electing people, well, if you even believe in elections, that they actually are real anymore, but that these people are there to help humanity, that they are there to have things, that they're there for the people. Okay, they're meant to be there for the people. But what is happening and what has occurred is that there is such an imbalance of these lower vibration dark energies that have been brought through, and that these the people that are, as Mark was saying, in the higher within all of the institutions, and so they're really actually not there for our highest good. They're there for them. They're there for themselves. They're there for what their agenda is. And it's important to understand what their agenda is so that you can be educated about how you're going to deal with it. Now, the other part of this is that this is not all doom and gloom. What we're doing right now is we're cracking open the egg, and we're connecting the dots in many aspects so that we can now, and we've got tools. Everybody here has ways to support, but even learning how to clear your field. It's engaging with the tools that you can utilize to actually come back into alignment, to activate your I am presence, so that you are not. First of all, no one this is not coming from a place of being a victim, but so that you are empowered. And so, Freeman, if you're available to jump in here, this is a great place for us to actually segue, before we move into the experiential part of this, into the mind control aspect of everything.
Yeah.
She's on a freaking beast.
She is on a beast.
Oh my gosh.
Katy Perry's on a beast, exactly as we had predicted.
She's riding a great cat-like beast, just like in the
Okay, so has the halftime show officially started?
It had just started,
right now.
as you called us in here. She is the Scarlet Woman riding on a beast out onto the stage, exactly as we had predicted. Wow.
I'm blown away.
We're blown away right now. Okay, this is, I mean, she's in a flame dress, which is reminiscent of that whole situation with the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games really expresses the mind control of the celebrities that we're witnessing here. So when people are often looking at...
Freeman, hold on one second.
Yeah, sure.
Because we've started the halftime show, hold the thought on the mind control. Let's, as soon as we are finished with the experiential and the transmuting of this energy, let's jump into that. How's that? And if you guys can take notes and share with us, because we can't legally show any of this, then we'll come back and let's start talking about it after. How's that?
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, Scott?
Yep.
And everybody, so this is the experiential aspect of this broadcast. And so what we'd like everybody to do is to come into, to be comfortable, to bring yourself into the presence of your I am presence. And that might not mean anything. So if you just consciously align with, okay, I'm coming into I'd like to be in my I am presence. And we're going to begin to calibrate a unified field at this time. Now, if you're comfortable with it, close your eyes, get comfortable with where you are physically, and as you do get comfortable, start to engage with and make a conscious connection as you breathe.
Deb, keep going there. We may have dropped out. Keep going again.
Okay. So make a conscious connection with your breath. So take a couple of deep breaths at your own pace. As we come into this unified field, connect in with Source, whatever that means for you. And as you're breathing, connect in with that life force energy. The life force energy that brings with the breath, and the connection with Source, into your physical vessel, your soul, coming into alignment with your heart's desires. Our heart's desires, many of us have experienced disheartening, experience of heartbreak. Many of our projects have not come into alignment. And it is imperative in order for us to create and to be aligned with our I Am presence, as well as to be aligned with knowing thyself as the creator beings of light that we are, to be in the experience of our heart's desires. So as you take a couple of deep breaths, and as we further come into alignment with this unified field, presencing where we are right now in this time-space continuum, the hundreds of people that have gathered to unify collectively, to bring forth, to be the conduits of light, to align with the vibrational frequencies and the alchemy of I am love, I am light, I am gratitude. And as we presence this and the trinity of these frequencies and vibrations, calling in your higher self, invoking your higher self in to be present here. And as we call forth our guides, Saint Germain, Ashtar, Melchizedek, and Saint Augustine, as well as the VWs, which we're going to clear the field, and these VWs are also known as the Viking warriors. And as you presence your heart and you presence your love of yourself and gratitude for yourself, and that is the self of that capital S, your I Am self. And as we come into alignment through the vibration also of Mother, Father, God, God is creator, creator, source of all that is. And that we empower you to call forth as we move into more of this experiential and activation, that you are presencing your free will, and that you are also defining what is in your highest good, and that you are accountable to your energy field. And that as we unify, we're aligned through our hearts, and we are also coming into alignment through the breath and surrounding visually the stadium and this particular performance. Now as we begin the field, and then we'll move into the activation. Scott?
Okay, so if it suits, breaths at who you really are coming through to this. And as Deb said, this is your opportunity to express your own free will. So if anything that I offer here in the way of visualizations or my words is not for you, then make the choice to set it aside. So as we visualize, perhaps this is helpful, visualizing that sphere or bubble around yourself as yours in your space, yours alone, and that as we are uniting here, as we hold the intent for the neutralization of any sinister agenda, that we hold the intent for a field which is beneficial to each individual, to Mother Earth, that we are commanding that any energies, entities, or beings that would seek to abrogate our free will, whether that be in holding this communication here today, whether it be in expressing our desire for the betterment of humanity, of slavery, and some of those concepts that we've discussed earlier that Freeman has raised, that is available for anyone who chooses to look at some of the darker and sinister intent in the energies, that we are ejecting those energies, entities or beings out of our field. We are claiming our field as ours. Furthermore, that we are reflecting back, almost like we've polished up the external surfaces of that bubble or sphere around us. We've polished it so it's reflective, and we're reflecting back those energies or entities that would seek to impinge upon our field, whether that be by showering us in lower vibration energies of fear, of survival, and any of the lower vibration energies that seem to be very prevalent in these ceremonies and rituals that we're discussing, that we reflect those back, and that we do this in all time-space continuums, all dimensions, whether we've been in time or out of time, whether we've been aware of being in our I am presence or out of I am presence. We're effectively loopholes. So as we come together here, we are holding that intent, and I'm going to hand it back to Deb in a sec. And just take another couple of deep breaths to feel that energy, whether you feel any energy coming through you, whether it's emanating from you. Take a couple of deep breaths just to be present as we're holding that intent for the neutralization of any sinister agenda conducted during this halftime Super Bowl ceremony and ritual. Deb?
So as we have commanded that any energies that are not in alignment with the highest divine good of Mother Earth and for the free will of all humanity, as well as the freeing of humanity from enslavement matrix, that these energies are to be dismantled, neutralized, nullified, and dissolved in all time-space continuums and all dimensions, that we are holding a space for reality to be created as a new Earth reality, that this is a planet of love, of Mother Earth is a planet of love, and that we each are the conduits, that we align through the divine blueprint that we each are, and knowing thyself as creator beings of light. And that we are further calling forth for consequence to any of the architects, to any of the beings that are abrogating our free will, any of the beings that are abrogating the free will of Mother Earth, any of the beings that are abrogating the free will of that which is our divine alignment with Prime Creator. And that is one of the things that has been communicated to us quite a lot, is that that line of divinity has been shrouded in darkness. And that what is being introduced today is something that is called a freedom patch. And the freedom patch, if you choose to engage with it, is a direct line. As Scott and I have worked behind the scenes for over a year now, up-leveling, 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 we've been asked to be conduits and bridges for higher dimensional, higher frequencies in order to step down those frequencies for anyone that chooses to align with what is being referred to and called now a freedom patch. And that this is the line to Prime Creator that will also open up the line to your higher self. Now, as we surround visually this stadium, this performance that is underway, that we are holding, we are seeing ourselves linking arms, and we're seeing ourselves linking through our hearts. And our heart's desires of experiencing the fullness of our own awakening, as well as the experience of Mother Earth's awakening. And that that journey be experienced of grace and ease, and that any obstructions of that journey through grace and ease be eliminated, to be dismantled, to be cleared out of that pathway. And that as we surround this stadium and this performance, that we are also transmuting with the violet flame the energies that are not in alignment with free will, with humanity experiencing a true awakening and being aligned with the essence of love and light, and to transcend this duality. that we each are experiencing the transcendence of duality into the singularity of knowing thyself as a being of light, a being of love. And that now as we activate the heart and the heart chakra of each of ourselves, if you so choose to engage with this, I'm going to activate the Merkaba. Now, as I activate, my mouth moves very fast as the energies are coming through. It's very common for you to experience as you're engaging with this from your free will, tingling and other frequency vibrations. There's an alchemical transformation that is occurring as you align with I am love, I am light, I am gratitude. Raising humanity into alignment with the universal law and the prime creator of frequencies and vibrations of I am love. I am light. I am gratitude. Calling forth the beings of light, the Viking warriors, to also surround and support, to bring balance back into each of our hearts, clearing away and transmuting with the violet flame any of the energies that are not serving us in our highest divine good, highest divine truth. Aligning with I am that, I am. I am a field, a frequency of love. Now, as I'm speaking the I am, this is also for you to engage with should you choose, and if you are in alignment and if you resonate with this. I am a frequency of light. I am that, I am. I am a magical being of love. And I'm here to be aligned with Prime Creator as well as the co-creator of the divinity upon Mother Earth. That is also why I'm here as a being of light. I'm here to be a conduit for my own heart's desires and my own self-love to shine through as a pillar of light, as a pillar of love. I am not here to be have my free will abrogated. I am here to be an implant of light. I am of love. I am of light. I am no longer accepting my field to be projected upon by any darkness that is not in my highest good. I am a free being. I am free. Coming into alignment with heart's desires, seeing thousands of beings that are surrounding the planet at this time, that are linking up, the as above, so below, through the gateway of the heart of love, aligning with higher self frequencies of love, connecting with higher self and creating a bridge for the freedom of I am that I am, to be experienced with the fullness and the gratitude of the awakening that I choose, no longer obstructed by any of the interferences or any of the influences from any other person's agenda, any other group's agenda. I am the creator of my reality. I am here to firmly plant and proclaim that I am a being of light and that I am a God creator being, and that there are no other entities or energies that are to be projecting into my field or into my offerings of life on this planet. activating the alchemy, holding the field, a unified field of love. Activating the unified field of love. Clearing pineal gland of any obstructions, allowing for the frequencies for third eye. It's opening. I think whatever is in highest divine good and truth for each person receiving the open the eyes of being of light. I'm engaging with the fullness of my highest divine good and truth in a divine way connected with Prime Creator. It is my clear intent to be here as a magical being of light and love. And they experience the fullness of my divinity. Opening heart frequencies and codes, align with love, freedom, liberty, balance, restoring humanity, restoring balance, restoring allowing the alchemy of my transformation to engage with my heart's desires, activating the alchemy of my heart's desires, to engage fully as a conduit, as a being of light, as a God being, of recognizing myself as that. Clearing the pathway from my heart all the way to my higher self. I am the freedom that I choose to see in the world. I am the love I choose to see in the world. Aligning with the heart of gold. Ooh, how are you guys doing? Sarah?
I'm good. I think I took too many decongestants. I can barely speak. I took so many so I could speak so I wouldn't have a runny nose, and now I have such a dry throat and dry mouth.
All right, Scott, how are you doing?
I'm absolutely buzzing with energy at the moment. I got it coursing through both arms, my forearm, my solar plexus, my legs. I'm feeling like the onset.
You're totally powered up. Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, tingles throughout my mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
All right. Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Steady as Eddie.
Okay. Are you feeling any energy?
Always. I'm constantly wired in. So yes, I'm feeling a little more now than usual, but it's very good. Spanning the globe.
Awesome. Okay, I would just like to, before there's actually still some more to come through. And so I would just like everyone, there's a lot of integration that is occurring as you're receiving the activation energy, as we're linking up, as we're surrounding that stadium, and we are holding a vibration of love across this planet, and multidimensionally as well. And so as we are holding that frequency, and those frequencies of I am love, I am light, I am gratitude, that we are surrounding this portal, rising any of the sinister energies that are intended to harvest any energy, to create a field of anything that is not in alignment with humanity's highest good. And also to neutralize any of the abrogation of free will that is affecting Mother Earth in any way that is not in the highest good for Mother Earth's ascension, as that we are the conduits. We are the conduits of the high vibration frequencies that are to activate, to induce, just as a birth is induced. We are the conduits to induce the ascension of Mother Earth. And through the abrogation of the free will that has occurred through this and many of the manipulations through the ceremonies and rituals, both public and hidden, this has affected, it has shrouded and created an energy and a vibration of darkness around Mother Earth. It has also shrouded in each and every one of you, so that your experiences are not nearly as the energies have incapacitated you and have been debilitating to you in ways that there is not only an abrogation of free will, but is an abrogation of your pure energy source and your source energy aligning with Prime Creator, knowing thyself as the divine beings that you are. And through the shrouding of that, it has incapacitated your ability to bring the fullness of your experience into alignment with joy, with love, with the expression and the beliefs that you are the creators of your reality, so that as we link through in this communication, through Deb and through Scott and through this team that has miraculously and beautifully come together in a very short period of time, we bring forth this message to you that we, the guardians of humanity, have come to the realization that we have not known all that has been going in, as Deb would say, under the hood. And so therefore we have come into alignment for understanding what has been going in on under the hood. And we are more than apologetic as well as appalled to understand that there have been things going on that we have not understood, and that as we have become aware to understand what has been going on, we have collectively determined that the intervention is necessary at this time to support with the restoration of humanity, hence Project Restore Humanity. And so therefore we are bringing you a collective conscious communication that is a connection of as above, so below. We are beings that are gathered from the inner earth, as well as bridging with the outer surface, and to you, to our brethren, to our brothers and sisters of light. We are saying to you that we are inducing the birthing of this ascension, and it is requesting that you come into alignment with this freedom patch, that we now may request to you the energies and frequencies to support you and to open up the fields of the Prime Creator, the elixirs, the alchemy that has been missing from your transformational experiences. And that as we are bringing you this message, that we are bringing you a message of hope, for it has been our in appalled awareness and understanding that there have things that have occurred that have not been in our awareness and our consciousness, and that the support has not been there for those of you that, as you have been experiencing a journey, many of you experiencing a journey being cut off from the knees. And it is that this is time that we are apologizing to you for. It is not, we have been in an awareness of holding you as divine creator beings, not understanding that the creation that you have been gifted with has been incapacitated. And so therefore we bring to you this message, and that we hope that bring to a message of hope, that you engage proactively with this journey, and that this is an offering from Company of Heaven at this time for this freedom patch to be brought forth. For it is our love of humanity as well as our love of Mother Earth that we are able to join with you, and at this time that is the intervention that we are strategically planning. But we also are encouraging you, you must include your own inside experiences to be that aligned with the heart's desires that you choose, that for the light of you as a God being of light, for you to shine this light and to bust through the shrouding of darkness that has occurred. And at this time we bring to you this message of hope, and through the activation, the materialization of this freedom patch. And this is the first of many communications that we will bring forth. And we bow to you and we say namaste. We do recognize the divinity in you. We are aligned with you in all aspects. This ascension will continue on to unfold. We're asking for your appreciation in this experience, as well as your engagement to understand there have been things that have occurred that were unbeknownst to us until of recent time, as you would refer to as time, the linear time, the program of time. And we are aware now that this is time for us to intervene in ways that we were not expecting, and so it is. Align with your hearts, our hearts, a network of heart's desires to experience love upon, through our physical vessels and upon Mother Earth, and aligning with the heart chakra of Mother Earth as we align with our heart chakras, each of us, and connecting that network of love, the network of light, through the crystalline electromagnetic frequencies, and being in gratitude for that which we each are, and that we have come collectively together today on this very auspicious and very amazing opportunity to come into alignment and to create a kickoff of beings of light uniting, and an opportunity for all of us to stand linked arm in arm, heart to heart, that this is a planet of love, and we will not stop until it is that reality. And so it is, and so it shall be.
And so it is, so it shall be.
Okay, how are we doing, team? Amazing roundtable people. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm feeling very, very good. Refreshed.
Awesome. Freeman, Jamie, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, unfortunately, have to admit that, like Sarah, I'm feeling under the weather, but definitely feeling the love flow. But yeah, I don't know where this cold came from or why it had to hit now.
Show the card.
Do you want to see something amazing about what we just witnessed in this Super Bowl halftime ritual?
Hold on one
or do you
second.
want to stick right now to
With Sean, and Scott, I know you've got a lot going on right now. He's quiet, but trust me, he has a lot of energy going through him right now. So there's a high probability that he, because of the energy coming through, oftentimes his mouth freezes when we actually go into this much of an up-leveling. So Scott, did you want to say anything? Or if you don't, then I'll just come right back to you. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. And for the viewers, what I would love for you to do, what we would love for you to do, is actually share in the IM chat, if you are engaging with that you share your experiences right now, or that you stay in the energy and the essence and the vibration. There is a lot of energy that is integrating at this time. So because we are electromagnetic beings and we are 70+% water, it's really important for the conduction of the energy that is coming through and that's being activated for you to drink a lot of water too. So just reminding you of that. All right, so Freeman, you want to come back and share what you were going to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to get myself back on there. Well, it's beyond amazing to us what we just witnessed with Katy Perry, and I'm so glad that there was this counter projection going on, because I know that within the secret societies, when you join a secret society, the first thing you must do is agree to join of your own free will and accord. And it's this way with any of the magical practices. So as you were saying, we are giving up our free will into this scenario, and it is even part of the ritual aspect of joining a lodge or going into any of these secret society organizations. You come of your own free will and accord. So again, we came of our own free will and accord and subjected ourselves to Katy Perry. And as we were discussing that, it was the OTO that was really at the heart of a lot of the ritualism that you're seeing. This Ordo Templi Orientis, which is Order of the Eastern Templars, if you want to get specific. But this was really overworked by Aleister Crowley, who reestablished the OTO and the rituals. And I mean, I just want to show you this because we're completely blown away. This is what we predicted we would see, but didn't honestly believe that we would see it. And that is the Lust card. And this is exactly what Katy Perry performed in the opening of the halftime show, is the Lust card. Now, you can go to freemantv.com and see on the front page that we have this very card, saying that what we're going to witness here was the representation of the Scarlet Woman coming out on the beast, which is the Whore of Babylon. And, you know, there it is, folks. I mean, if you watch the halftime, you cannot deny what we're telling you. It's right there in front of your face. So this is the tarot magic of Aleister Crowley. He worked these paintings and even altered the tarot just to make them fit this, and changed the title to Lust, which of course fits exactly into what we were talking about, and will lead into the ideas of the modern feminism and the desecration of the divine feminine.
And Freeman, can we only see about a third of Jamie's face. Is there a way that you guys... Yes, beautiful being. We'd love to see all of you. All right. Yes, thank you. And the card that you just held up, that's a, so just to recap what you're saying, it's a tarot card that, does this have to do with the inversion then of what we're talking about? This is, and I want to actually keep coming back to this inversion, and Mark, I'd love for you to speak about this, that the inversion of everything through these satanical rituals and ceremonies is what we, I believe, are experiencing, and why there's so much imbalance. So Freeman, can you just address that?
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, the card that you just showed is, can you explain what that card is again?
Okay, so the tarot is considered the book of life. It is an outline and a format of the cosmos, and this particular card would be of the major arcana, which there are 22, that are the pathways on the tree of life. And when you start to look into this ritual symbolism, everything goes to this tree of life, and so each position on the tree of life has a different major arcana associated with it. This one actually in Hebrew has the letter Teth, which is the serpent, and the card is Lust. Now Crowley, when he created this tarot deck, known as the Book of Thoth, he altered it in its tree of life and the path, And so he actually switched 8 and 11. And 11 in this situation actually is the most accursed number in Magic. And so this is the card 11 as well. That's another aspect of this. So you have your Serpent, you have your 11, you have your Lust, and you have your Whore of Babylon. And so this is within the Ordo Templi Orientis, their main focus is this Whore of Babylon. So to express it in another way, this Whore of Babylon is known as Kali. And so when you witnessed Miley Cyrus on stage sticking out her tongue, she wasn't having strokes. This was literally Kali, the goddess of destruction. And SNL, Saturday Night Live, even made jokes about how Miley brought about the apocalypse through her performance of heightened sexuality and the destruction of the feminine. Because the current feminism that is being promoted through Beyonce and Miley Cyrus is dominant and domineering, and an attempt to make the polarities equal so that the women are as sexually perverted as the men have been created to be. And that's what we're witnessing in this situation, and that's why the Lust card is the one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. And Mark, would this be a good time for us to then move into talking about the destruction and the destroying of care and feminine?
Sure. I'd like to first say that while I do agree the symbolism is certainly taken...
Is Mark there?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Sure. So I'd like to first talk about a little bit about the symbolism of the event. I agree with Freeman that clearly this is using some of the symbolism of the tarot for sure, especially with the types of flame motifs that were used during the ceremony, and certainly that image of that Lust card, which is also called the Strength card or the Courage card in the tarot deck. Freeman is absolutely correct when he says that the tarot has to be studied in relation to the Kabbalistic tree of life. When you place the 22 cards of the tarot, major arcana, onto the tree of life, you essentially get 2 trees, because each tree is made of 10 spheres called sephirot. And these spheres on the tree of life, there would be 10 of them on each tree. So you have a macrocosmic tree and a microcosmic tree. And then you have a hidden sphere that is called da'at, which means knowledge, from which the trees grow or are said to emanate from. And the first and last card of the tarot deck, the first one being the Fool or the Zero card, represents the microcosm or the self, and the last card being the World or the universe represents the macrocosm of the universe. So you have, again, 2 trees with 10 cards on each tree at the positions of the Sephirot, and then the each card, the 0 card and the 21 card, the 22nd card of the Major Arcana, being placed at the dot positions. When you do this, you realize that what the tarot is a book about occult knowledge. The minor arcana, or I should say the microcosmic knowledge of this first tree, is about the human psyche and the indwelling components and characteristics of human consciousness. And then the macrocosmic tree that is formed from the second half of the Major Arcana is all about the laws of nature that we have to choose whether to deeply understand and then align our behavior into accordance with those laws, or not do that. And if we do that, we create order and peace in our lives, and if we don't do that, we create self-inflicted suffering. So in the Thoth Tarot, which Freeman showed there, which clearly was represented by the imagery in this halftime ritual, that card was placed in a reversal with the 11 card. The 11 card would take its place at the top of the macrocosmic tree in this tarot card arrangement. If you go to my work on my website in the podcast section. I've actually broken this down extensively with images in the podcast section of my site. You could just search through that for tarot and tarot symbolism. But this reversal was performed by Crowley and some of the members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn because they kind of placed this concept of courage and the desire to change things through the will at the highest position of the cosmic force. I don't see this as a positive reversal. While I am not down on all of Crowley's work, I don't see him as a Satanist, but rather someone who was actually sort of a gray magician who understood a lot of natural law and wrote about it and channeled it through automatic writing, but then again in his personal life fell very short at actually putting that understanding into effect and thus converting it into wisdom. So I would certainly tell people, look into his writings, but don't try to live according to the example that he set, because he, while he may very well have known the path, did not really successfully walk the path. And that's what it's really all about, is changing your behavior for the better. And I don't see Crowley as any sort of a role model for that. Certainly I would view him as a gray adept at best, certainly not a white adept. So someone like that, while I would say he failed to achieve true self-mastery during his lifetime, certainly lent a lot of very important foundational work in as far as symbolism goes. His Thoth Tarot deck is among, I think, the best in symbolic imagery. This reversal is dangerous in my opinion, in my analysis, because it takes down from the 11 position, which is at the top of the macrocosmic tree in this tarot card orientation, the natural law card, which is the justice card or the law card. This is the cosmic spiritual laws of morality that are in place in the universe that should be enshrined at the very top position on the tree of life, because it is the force that ultimately governs everything that happens within creation. To take that down from any position other than that highest position, the Keter position on the macrocosmic tree of life, I would see as a definite negative spiritual reversal in symbology. And this is what I would call, the application of this symbology in this ritual is what I would call the perverted usage of the feminine symbology, of the feminine energy. It is the destruction of the sacred feminine aspect of consciousness, which is true care. See, what they do by these mega rituals, by the Super Bowl in general, by focus on sports and bread and circuses of all kinds, is they are getting people to shut down the development of the desire to truly care, to pay attention to and place our focus upon something that is truly important and has the potential for real transformation in society. Such a mega ritual for the redirection of that form of energy, that form of feminine energy, of attention and focus, in the sense of care and squandering it, is something that ultimately really acts as a suppression of consciousness throughout society, and that's ultimately what these people do. The rituals that they perform involving celebrities and music are there to inject this reversed or perverted archetypal symbolism and energy into popular culture through the gathering of our attention and the direction of that energy outward into society. These practices are typical of dark occultism in general, and they're used actually to great effect in our culture. They're masterfully done, and it's all going into the subconscious mind through those back doors without people understanding them, because they're not familiar with this type of iconography and symbolism, and therefore they're not really cognizant of what they are seeing. In effect, what it all has the intended purpose of doing is basically taking people's attention off of what they really should be focusing it upon and rechanneling it into trivial pursuits, and thus acting as a killing of that sacred feminine energy of care society-wide.
And there's one more aspect of this, Mark, that I would like for you to share, and that has to do with the way that you talk about and describe the destroying of terror, and the war on terror.
Sure. You know, it's all about kind of, phonetic variants of that word. The original name of the goddess in a lot of goddess traditions was Tara. And, that name phonetically kind of morphed as it traveled, through different geographic regions. It became the basis for the word truth in the Egyptian culture. The goddess in ancient Egyptian society was referred to as Tarut, and that phonetically morphed into Taruth. And again, then that came down into modern English language as truth. Truth is a feminine force. It's something that we need to open ourselves to and align our energies with. Perception is not reality. We need to align our perceptions to what is actually there and what is true. And when people talk about, oh, we shouldn't look at this or pay attention to these dark forces, there's no such thing as knowledge which is negative. Knowledge is always positive. It's what we do with that information and knowledge that makes it either used for good or for ill in society. To say you don't want to know is not to negate the energy. To develop understanding of what's being done, not get overwhelmed by that and dwell on it endlessly, but to have awareness of something that is negative, that empowers you to be in a position where you can then do something with that knowledge and information to change it and possibly even avert its negative effects. So there is no such thing as knowledge that is negative. Only ignoring that which is really there, ignoring reality, will definitely get you a negative result. So once again, I think this is all about really where we should focus our attention and the type of knowledge we want to take into ourselves, so then we can empower ourselves to take action with that knowledge, and that's what real wisdom is.
Absolutely. And absolutely well said. Patrick.
Yeah, I wanted to add excellent analysis by Mark. So I just wanted to add to that, just on a very basic level, I deal with the media. That's sort of the sphere I'm in. So it's the world of images, the world of information, the world of illusion. And I've been talking a lot to my listeners about Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave from Plato's Republic, which is a really good, simple, fundamental kind of allegory or story or metaphor about images and illusions. And this is the Super Bowl halftime show. This is like the height of this is Plato's cave at its highest level. So in the allegory of the cave, you have people who were chained down from birth till death, and they cannot look from side to side. They can only see a wall with projections of shadows, and so there'll be maybe a fire behind them that's creating the light source, and then they can only see what's called shadow play on the cave wall. And in one story in the cave, somebody escapes. They manage to wiggle out of the shackles. They run outside in a scene that harkens to the Bambi, or Aesop's fables, sees his reflection in the pond, and is so horrified by what he sees, he literally runs back in the cave, slips back on his shackles, puts himself back in the chains, and back to business as usual. And also that's a real powerful story, because you have a situation where you can say lift the veil. You can have an apocalypse. You can see what's really there. You can be awoken. You can wake. But then you can also go back to sleep again. So, it's not a permanent state of awakening. Some people will have an epiphany, and then they'll go straight back to their, whatever, crack pipe or illusions or televisions or whatever, because it's seductive and it's addictive, and it feeds something that needs fed. But so the Plato's cave, it's an illusion. So television, we're dealing with illusions all the time. We make our own illusions. We are in Plato's cave for a lot of our waking life. But when you become aware of the cave through a story like an allegory like the cave, then all of a sudden you look at things very differently. and you're able to kind of see and be consciously aware. So everything's coming in your conscious mind and not being shoveled through the back door and through your subconscious without your consent. So, and I think that's really a good underlining starting point for me anyway. That's kind of where I start from, and then I branch out from there.
Thank you, because I actually was going to ask you to touch upon the subconscious and how this begins to get, how this actually gets in through our subconscious as a doorway. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I'll quickly. I will for very briefly, and then I think some of your other speakers are probably more schooled on that than me. But my understanding is that you know, when you have rituals, and one of the purposes of the rituals, one thing that you can achieve from a ritual, when you have everyone's point of attention focused on a single point of attention. So with these rituals, then you can induce a kind of a state of mind control whereby ideas and things can be injected into the subconscious. So you're basically like a robot. You're moving, you're functioning, you're watching, but you're really not conscious. You're not present. So, and this is one of the more powerful times when you can program. The other is a trauma-based sort of inserting things in your subconscious through trauma-based mind control, or however you want to describe it, where you have a traumatic event like a 9/11. This is the flip side of the Super Bowl spectacle. You know, a traumatic event, a collective trauma, horror, emotions, or you're in a heightened emotional state, but that emotion might be fear, uncertainty, and from there you can inject an unlimited amount of data and information in a very short space of time, and it will go deep into your subconscious and stay there for a very long time. So maybe more powerful maybe than the type of programming you're seeing here at the Super Bowl halftime show, but nonetheless it's the same process. So I think that's really important to point out too, because if you're aware of it, because if you're conscious of it, then you do have a chance to understand, you know, the show that's being performed to you, or the sort of you know, sort of thing that's being done in front of you, trying to seduce you, or to implant something in your head, or create your reality, or the shadows on the cave wall, however you want to describe it. So I think that's and also it's, you know, it's really primordial archetypes, like Freeman was talking about Crowley's tarot deck, and then dealing with a series of kind of universal archetypes there, and this is how this information is transferred. It's writing on those basic archetypes because people recognize them throughout history, through the ages, and their sort of commonalities, characters, symbols, archetypes, basically. So yeah, that's really important to just to know the fundamentals of that, and that helps you to be aware. Once you're aware, you can cope with and you know, and also, you know, repel if that's what you want to do. Repel what's being thrown at you.
I think, Patrick, thank you. Those are excellent points, and what I would say is not necessarily, there's a repelling, and then there's also a not engaging, a conscious choice to not engage. And the other points that you brought up in regards to, you mentioned 9/11, the event, and that's a very interesting bridge of what occurred during 9/11 with all the trauma, and there was so many things that that were utilized from the trauma that was created from that experience to then really abrogate people's free will, especially in the United States from that point forward. The other thing is that what we had talked about, Scott, you're back. Are you back? Are you back?
I'm here. I'm here.
What?
I've something to say to add to that, but keep going for the moment.
Cool. And I just wanted to reiterate, because there are so many light workers, people that refer to themselves as light workers around the planet, and Scott touched upon this at the beginning, and I just want to reiterate this, is that And people were concerned when we said we're coming out with this event. They were saying, well, why do you want to give it energy? And our teaching and awareness, the guidance that we have and the awareness that we engage with is that we're not giving it energy because we're aware of what is going on. We've made a conscious choice. We don't have judgment. We don't have emotional charges and triggers around it. We're here to shine a light on it and to anchor from a perspective of being in our I am presence and being that being of love, that that we want the transparency for this. And so what Patrick was sharing is absolutely imperative for people to understand, is that this situation where events are utilized, if you look at the videos that are put out regarding specifically the ones around Beyonce and the energy that she utilized in the 2013 Super Bowl, and the same thing with 9/11, that those energies are working. When you're not aware of it, they're working to harvest your energy, to engage you, and as Patrick was saying, programs then are able to be implanted into your subconscious that it takes quite a lot to actually understand the depth of the programs. Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick one. I think Freeman is going to sign off. He's not feeling flash there.
Okay.
So thank you, Freeman, and yes, we look forward to speaking again on this. To address that topic that you brought up there, Patrick, about the difference between something coming in subconsciously through the back door versus coming in through your conscious awareness or the front door. I think that's a very important point to just reiterate again for the viewers, that that aspect is when it's channeled and direct. You think of the intent. If you were being honourable and you wanted to get a message across to someone, you would approach them through the front door, and you would be honest and have that disclosure. Look at the intent involved in sending something through the back door. It's deceptive. So straight away, electromagnetic signature of the topic is based on deception. That's your foundation. You've got a deception there. Now, as he said, once people start to be cognizant of the way things are being done, the programming that is being intended, they have that opportunity now to make the choice to say, okay, do I want to receive that energy that's coming in through the back door? Do I want that programming? Do I want to be a part of that agenda that's really being put upon us? And so my encouragement to the viewers is to look at your own day-to-day life and be the observer of, am I experiencing this? Is this my choice, or is this someone else's choice that's been imposed upon me? And they can be very, very subtle. So thank you for raising that one, Patrick.
I'd also like to invite Sarah to jump in at this point. And Sarah, you haven't had much of an opportunity to share about your background and your experiences. Would this be a good time for you to share about that? Because basically you're a product. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but you're a product of what we're talking about. Would you agree? Oh. Sarah, you're muted. We can't hear you. There you go.
With my hoarse voice, I'll try to explain that. Yes, I was actually born into a bloodline. So I think with me being born into a bloodline, there was a lot of karma that comes along with that, because of the fact that for such a long time, these bloodlines have been carrying out different atrocities around the world against humanity, because I feel in the beginning they weren't fallen, and they did fall to very, very low levels. and then they live in a 3D life where they can essentially keep everybody else under them, and they keep a lot of wealth to themselves. And it's really interesting being born into that. I am born with a lot of the information that comes genetically within the DNA, and I'm able to access that. And I think that's how I know about symbolism, about energy work, and about a lot of the psychic abilities I have, such as astral traveling, remote viewing, outer body experiences, all sorts of things like that come genetically. It also comes at a huge cost because of the fact that I am always having issues with the different beings. I interact with all sorts of different beings, and the negative ones and positive ones. I think that in bloodlines, they breed so that they can keep these sort of abilities and do things on what I call how could I put that? They're doing it in an alternate reality. They have this all built, and it mirrors down to this reality so that they can keep controlling this reality. But it's sort of all built in another one. The thing with this is that if people became spiritually awoken, they could access those realms, and they could take their power back there, and they wouldn't lose their energy anymore. Also, I think lack of energy creates that people are just boxed in 3D. And my whole thing is devoting that I help wake people up to this stuff, and that I help to encourage them to get self-empowered and to reclaim their souls and to reclaim their higher selves, and not to be afraid of anything, just to go and reclaim everything that's theirs. That essentially humanity now is like sheep. They're all being used, and they're going to the slaughter, and they don't even know a sad thing. And I think I'm a bit of a black sheep in where I am because of the fact that I chose to be on the good side, and I didn't choose to go along with that because I was offered a lot of stuff and I didn't choose it. Because I think that when you're born into that, you're always offered things. They'll offer you status, they'll offer you different stuff. And when you accept that, it's a bit of an allegiance to the dark side, or to you then become also a pawn in taking energy and reaping energy for that whole consciousness. And I divided myself from that. And that's a bit of my story.
Sarah, one of the things, just to echo what you were saying about things being offered to you in terms of status, Stu Webb did with Preston James and I think Gordon Duff on Veterans Today. And I think Preston gave a really good introduction to people as to how some of the celebrities and various business executives, elite, are induced into that existence. They're fed a little bit of grandeur, they're fed a little bit of money, popularity, parties, and then slowly the infiltration comes in a way that is, oh, we've got some photos of you here that are with a young lady here, and you're married, you wouldn't want that sort of stuff to get out. Now, whilst we talk about a lot of this being as a consensual thing each step of the way, of deceptiveness that is employed in gaining that consent, which to my belief is that anything that is a presumed consent that is reliant upon any form of deception doesn't qualify as the elements of true, informed and voluntary consent. It's almost like it fails on a moral strike. Like, oh. The other thing, David has rejoined us. He's looked like he had a bit of technology issues. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on there, Sarah? Or,
Well, I think it's about the heart and the intent of the heart, or your intent. You know, they're going to know, they know whether money pulls you, whether status pulls you, whether wanting to be famous pulls you. They're going to know your weakness because obviously they have the means to. And these beings are very telepathic too. And they obviously have people everywhere that work for them and that are people that are possessed. And I think if you don't have the right intent, you will definitely fall to it. It's about whether or not one chooses to go on the path and wake themselves up on the spiritual path. Otherwise, you're going to fall to it. It's most people, honestly, I think most people just have already fallen in a way because they've already they already sell them their souls for small things, regardless of big things. And this is where we need to wake humanity up of how precious the soul is and how precious it is for us to retain our soul energy, not to give it out for 3D benefit or 3D gain.
Well, I'm sorry, I totally missed that. I just wanted to apologize to everyone on the panel. Yes, I'm having technical difficulties, and I've been having them in this apartment for a while. So I do apologize for that. But I wanted to just, is it okay if I touch on something that Sarah said?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Do you hear me clearly?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. And David?
Sure.
It might make, if you could just sit still a little bit, because you're moving around quite a lot, it might be easier for us to actually just follow you energetically.
Okay.
Just a question.
Not a problem. That's fine. In terms of intent, people are under the assumption that intention, as long as you're doing something for the purpose of something good, the outcome or whatever it is, or the energy that you harness is going to be positive. Well, in terms of when we talk about the mystic schools and we are talking about Freemasonry, some people might call it something else, whatever affiliation it may be. When I was talking about that point about the Catholic Church and people that go there when they're at their worst, I was talking more about the rituals that occur of the up and down, the sitting down, the rituals that occur when people are actually in church. So are very similar to things that occur outside within, I would say, the elite when they practice their own religion, you can say. The part that I say is that the intent has nothing to do with it. If we all did things with the purpose of intention, then this would be a better place. But the problem is that even though our intent is positive, the outcome is still the same. Because the intention is not what you're conveying out to the world. In other words, if you have, let's say, you get something really, really good, and you give it to society, you get $100 and you give 99 of that money into the world. Most people do it with the intention of helping others. But if you do it with the hope of maybe if I give, I will get something back, then the intention plays a large role. Like I said, that one of the greatest examples is what I say is when it comes to physics or when it comes to the design of a cellular phone on the internet, I would say the majority of the people that have absolutely no idea on how they work. I'm including myself. But just because you don't know how it works, just because you don't, just because the intention of the phone call may be positive, does not mean that you are not engaging in something negative. And yeah, so in other words, sometimes we are misled to think that because we don't believe in it or because we don't practice it, it won't affect us. Negative energy will not affect us. But it's what we convey out or what we portray out. And it's something that is not being told to the general public. The majority of the people aren't aware that if they do of karma, of the way, and of the religions, well, not the religions, but the beliefs and the mysticisms that were here before the three monotheistic religions, which all are basically derivatives of the earlier civilizations as far back to the Phoenicians. So that's what I'm saying. Intention at time is loosely given, and I don't feel like in the end it's what you do, not so much why you did it, because that's what people are. That's what history judges people by, and that's basically, you know, why bad situations always tend to perpetuate, because we seek the same solution to the same problem. Remember, Einstein's definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And unfortunately,
David, I just want to jump on the point about, I think what you're trying to say is, it reminds me of what we saw with the Super Bowl halftime show with Katy Perry's performance when they go to the chessboard, which is a very overt Masonic symbol, right? And it was like, it's just one of those things that they throw in there, and you're like, oh, okay, that's very overt. But the point being, no matter what your intention, whether you're a piece, whether you're a knight, whether you're a castle, whether you're a pawn, right, whether you're a bishop, each person, each player has different intention, but they are not necessarily the masters or the chess player themselves, right? So the point being that there are forces at work that are utilizing us for our essential natures, right? Seeing people as
I would say for their nature. No,
so people are used in a much bigger plan, right? And I think I'd like to personally, I'd love to hear more of what you thought of the symbol of like Katy Perry riding out on the lion, for example, the Leo symbolism, or her being dressed like the Hunger Games girl with the flames, right?
I know. I noticed that. I did happen to catch that, and I saw like Katy Perry is actually one of those artists who overtly expresses all these symbols, and literally it's so blatant that you can't even like ignore it. And the lion has many I would say like representations all the way that trail back all the way to even to ancient Egypt. As you know, even the figure of the Sphinx is a half lion, half man. The premise of the lion, in terms of, is of course, as you said, the constellation Leo. When we were thinking about like if we everything, just the constellation Leo and the horoscope of Leo are two different entities. They're two different things. They don't work together. So people automatically assume that the period of time of their zodiac happens to be the time that these constellations are relevant, and that is the dates actually don't intertwine. They don't coincide. Like if you notice during the riots that occurred in Ferguson County, you saw a big M during the television, and they kept on showing the McDonald's about what happened in McDonald's and how there was a big M around and the people surrounded by it. And the big M is a Greek letter, basically, that displays the constellation Virgo. And also, which is why I think even Zeitgeist touched on this when it was talking about on why a lot of the deities that are of female gender are usually named Mary, Maya, Magdalene. They all start with an M, and it's all derivative to the constellation Virgo, which Virgo is another word for basically virgin. But if you look at what the contention of what was going on in Ferguson County between the rivalry, it wasn't just authority against the community. It was also a racial division, and the reason for that is because opposite of the M is the W, and the W is, if you look at both of these letters as symbols, as opposed to looking at these letters as letters, you will realize that the W actually is different in every other language than it is in English. English actually sometimes goes a little bit backwards. The M represents the chalice. The V and the W represents a phallic symbol. So M in every other culture usually is designed to go into, if you have to use the restroom, you will see a letter M, but it usually is for a woman, mujer, or and if you look at the W, which is the antithesis to the letter M, you will see it's a phallic, which you could have learned this through even the Da Vinci Code that explained it pretty well. And that's basically the rivalry that was going on in Ferguson County. So these little symbols, the tiny little subtleties that are missed, but they are placed in the media for people to understand, and those who can understand it to get the message across, either if it's a warning or if it's a shout out to prepare, whatever the case may be, they are being conveyed in the media, and the audience who doesn't have that understanding will never understand it, and those who do understand it will basically know that there are more messages to follow. So even if you look at the names of the victims, you can look at, it was Darren Wilson. Even the name of Darren Wilson is a W, which represents, like I said, a phallic symbol. If you look at Michael Brown, which starts with an M, and you once again, you're looking at more of a symbol of the chalice, which is usually the chalice is a V shape because it's in the shape of a woman's womb and the uterus. And a man is, of course, is because of the phallic symbols that as the Washington Monument and many of the ones that we have elsewhere. And you can find these basically everywhere. Like, even remember, I think I spoke to you, Sean, in regards to the football of last year when we were watching the football, the Super Bowl. And if anybody saw The Dark Knight Rises, there is so much turmoil, so much negativity surrounded with this film. Now, people automatically assume it's like this guy went up to dress like the Joker, and God knows what really happened. And, my heart goes out to the families and everyone who lost that thing. But when we think about it outside of ourselves, objectively, and we start reviewing on actually what symbols are being conveyed, you would realize that The Dark Knight Rises tells us so much within a movie, in a movie. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, like when I saw that scene of the football player running down the field, and all of a sudden behind them it was falling apart, the field in The Dark Knight Rises, which is why I said that if you look at an aerial view of the stadium, just like any diagram that you would go to, and it shows you the seating arrangements in color, if you look at that, it was black and yellow because it's conveying a warning sign. And the warning sign is usually because of a radioactive or biohazards. And it was even given when the commercials of the Super Bowl added to it. I don't know if you remember the Maserati commercial, and then all of a sudden all the Trident commercials and all the Trident that were appearing in movies. And last year was a very, very, very important year of the usage of the Trident within the elite culture, and even into the Malaysian plane.
David, I'm going to jump in there. Sure. I suspect that each of us could talk on this subject with mountains of symbology that we can dig up. What I'm going to suggest is that we propose another show where we can actually analyse some of the symbology that we weren't able to actually witness in the halftime show itself. Freeman obviously pointed out what happened at the start of the show. Perhaps what I might do is we'll do a little bit of a round table wrap up and give everyone the opportunity to point people in the direction of where they might find some more information. Like you were mentioning that movie, the Dark Knight Rising. Where might each of the panel participants suggest that the viewers go to get a little bit more information about what we've been talking about? And with that, what we'll do is probably we'll keep in touch via communication outside of this broadcast, and we'll look to reschedule another follow-up broadcast. I know Mark is not going to be available for that in preparation for the Free Your Mind conference coming up in April. But I think the invitation is obviously there to everyone else to participate. So perhaps, where should we start? Sean, do you want to kick off there?
Yeah, Sean. You go, Sean.
Repeat the question, clarify a little bit. You're saying...
Scott, Scott, your video is off, as far as I can see, and we're having a challenging time with you hearing what you're saying. So I'll jump in right now. Was it just me, or was anyone else having a challenge hearing him?
No, I heard what he said clearly. I was just curious. I didn't understand the question quite. If he was, Scott, you're recommending places people to go to see symbolism. I feel like it's everywhere. The whole point of this show is that we're telling people it's right in front of you. Just pay attention and start to understand there's a connection. There is no coincidence. It is synchronicity. Synchronicity is the nature of our reality. It's the language of our universe.
Mm-hmm. And so, Scott, are you there right now?
Yeah, I've just turned off my camera.
Okay. You want to keep going with that flow?
Yeah, I take Sean's point there. It is everywhere. I suppose my suggestion was there's some very good synopsises of that symbology that is everywhere that people have done. For example, Mark has got quite a number of videos on his website. Freeman with freemantv.com has got a mountain of it. Yourself with Buzzsaw on Lip TV as an ongoing discussion. Some of the viewers may not be aware of this, and so opportunity, I suppose, to point people in the place of where they can get a very good analysis by the likes of the panel presenters describing this information.
And what I would also like to suggest is that we do come back together again, whoever's available, when we decide to do this, or there will be several conversations, because I feel like this is just the beginning. We've only scraped the tip of the iceberg. And Sean, one of the things that I'd really like to expand upon is the film industry, and how, because the media is so incredibly powerful, and how the film industry is being utilized, as well as the music industry, to further encapsulate and to further move forward this other agenda that a lot of people are not aware of. So, is there anything you would want to say about that in this moment?
I think that's a whole other discussion.
Sean,
It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. I mean, obviously, derivative from what we've discussed today, as far as Super Bowl of today and the Katy Perry performance. So, yeah, that's a whole other story.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So basically, we're gonna at this point. So we're wrapping it up. And is there? Let's see. As far as reaching out and getting to each of these people that are here, their websites, everything is on the page that you're probably viewing this from, which is the Counter Protocol of Light Events Super Bowl 2015. And Scott, do you want to just do the final wrap up, and then we'll do with each person? Okay, I'm not hearing him.
Sorry, I was having difficulty there. Yeah, again, I just wanted to give a last opportunity for each of the panel to say a few words, and we'll go from there. Mark, do you want to start us off there?
Absolutely. I want to thank you both for inviting me to take part in this panel discussion, and to help people to understand that symbolism that goes on a mass scale, such as what we witnessed in the Super Bowl tonight, is very important to understand. It reaches into the subconscious mind. It has an effect whether people understand it or not. To understand it and how it is being used is to steel yourself against the power of that symbolism to go to work on the subconscious mind to influence you in ways that you do not wish to be influenced. That's what this is all about, bringing that kind of awareness to people so that they can empower themselves with that knowledge. I've broken down symbolism of many different traditions extensively on my own website, in my videos, and mostly in the podcast section of my site, my radio shows. I encourage people to visit my site, whatonearthishappening.com, and go to the audio section, the podcast section, and listen from podcast number 1 forward at their own pace. It's a tapestry of information. It is an initiation of sorts into arcane knowledge, into the world of the occult, into the world of symbols, into the world of mind control. And I don't leave it there. I go forward and propose empowering solutions about how we can understand the spiritual laws of the universe, align our behavior to them, and then we're going to see widespread sweeping changes for the betterment of our society. So that's my website, whatonearthishappening.com. I hope people will definitely check it out and give the information a chance and take it in. And I want to thank you again for inviting me to be part of this event.
No worries. Thank you, Mark. And yeah, we look forward to speaking again. Let's say, Sarah, how?
You know what? I think I'm going to sign off because I can't barely speak.
Okay, well, good. We're wrapping this up. Is there any website that you wanted to share with folk so they can connect with yourself?
No, I did. Is my website up on the main page?
It is, yes. It's linked from the
yes, then that's where you can contact me through.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. David, closing words?
Yes. I just started my filmmaking company. It's called One Idea Films.com. The website should be up. It's not down. It's been anticipating for about a little bit under a year now, but there's a documentary that I just completed. It's called Hip Hopnosis, and it discusses the inner parts of hip hop music from the beginning to the end. So this is a universal kind of documentary in which even if you have no knowledge of hip hop music at all, there are 3 prerequisites before it that will bring you up to speed, so it can get to basically the point that of where the music kind of started going in a certain direction, in the direction where it is today. And a lot of it had to do with the Tupac and the Biggie and all that stuff. So One Idea Films, and idea is spelled with an I. I'll spell it out for you. It's 1 O-N-E, and it's spelled I as in the I, D-E-A films.com. And I will have small, short, little documentaries, small videos about certain things, about the Super Bowl of last year, certain things that I have not yet publicized because I have to go within the margins of the copyright. When it comes to music, there's a lot of red tape, so we're finally getting there, and I'm very, very excited about it. So just if we can just look out for that. And I also go by the director name of David Starborn. It's as they spell, so it's David Starborn, which is also a stage name because I am an actor as well, and worked in several films. So you can also find me on IMDb, or you can find my Facebook, and I will happily befriend anyone who is open-minded and would like to learn more of basically what I have to. What I've learned and share the knowledge, because I've learned a lot from everyone here too. So thank you for having me on this panel. I do appreciate it. Thank you, and I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No worries. I think we've all had little challenges in that regard. So yeah, thank you again, David. Patrick.
Yes, again, yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on this panel. There's just a couple of housekeeping items with regards to the Super Bowl I thought I might mention. I've been paying attention to what's been rolling, and the prime advertising spot was bought by the Church of Scientology right before the halftime show, and they ran an ad, which to me is very interesting because I've never seen a Scientology ad, but a very slick one, a high-tech ad. I've never seen really one in prime time before. I've seen them on other things, so that's interesting. And yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there to mull over, I guess. And the other thing is, I don't know, this is more other people's area, but they did pan the camera a lot to the celebrities who were partying in the skyboxes, they call them. So Steven Tyler, Paul McCartney, Mark Wahlberg. You know, and I guess in these days, celebrities, super celebrities, there's celebrities and super celebrities, so there's demigods and there's gods, but I guess these are the gods of our 21st century culture, is you know, playing the same role as gods or kings played before in times gone past. So it's always interesting to me to look at how they elevate people these days, not for maybe as much for what they've done, but more because they are just famous. They just are imbued with some sort of special quality that we're meant to recognize as being kind of powerful, if you will. So it to me is really interesting to see that. I mean, Steven Tyler, I joke a lot on my show, by the way, guys. So I mean, I say Steven Tyler's a walking corpse. You know, I mean, just as a joke, but I mean, you can laugh. Some people might say, "Yeah, you're right, he is," but I just kind of laugh at these things because they are kind of funny. Paul McCartney's had quite a few facelifts as well, so he's, you know, a facsimile of what he once was, from a visual point of view, anyway. But it's just funny to me. But that's the stuff that's woven into these big events, so it's certainly for public consumption. But thank you very much. 21stcenturywire.com is the website. Go visit it. Lots of interesting stuff on there for everybody.
21st century?
21stcenturywire.com. 21st Century Wire.
That's also linked off the homepage as well. Sorry, the landing page where this video's aired.
Sean, it looks like the Patriots are going to win, by the way, Sean. I don't know, last-minute field goal.
Hey man, there's 3 minutes left, and if they score, the Seahawks have a lot of time. So let's watch. I want to watch.
I'm not really paying attention, of course, but I'm just telling you. And we don't have any money.
I'm going to sign off in a second to watch the rest of this game.
Well, the score is part of numerology. Don't forget that.
That's true. Whatever numbers end up, but I'll leave it to you guys to decipher that.
Remember to bleed.
Okay, so how about we let you guys go finish the game? We'll wrap this up, and we'll get together again and regroup and plan our next event. So I just want to extend a thank you to everyone who's come along, all the listeners, the viewers, Sean, Patrick, Mark, David, Sarah, Jamie, Freeman, and Deb. Thank you.
I just want to say goodbye to the viewers as well.
Exactly.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And to our viewers, to everybody who's engaged with this live and anybody who's watching the recording of it, you have been tuning in to Wake Up Shift is Happening. I'm Deborah Pietsch, and this is also Scott Bartle. And our 1, 2, 3s as we sign off to you are, we are in this together. The most important relationship is a loving relationship with yourself, with a capital S, and we will see this through. So we hope today has been insightful, educational, empowering, as well as the experiential aspect of what we brought forth, powerful for you. And we thank you for being a part of this journey and for being in your, for being committed to being awake. And that's a big part of it. And then to engage with the consciousness. So we thank everybody from the viewers to everyone that was here as part of the roundtable. And Scott, I know we're definitely going to be doing this again.
I think so. Thank you, everyone. We'll sign off now. Cheers.
Play and things like that. With the Seahawks, I definitely think it is Horace, and they did win last year. And this year, I think that they might win.
Okay, so Sarah, thank you. And as you can probably tell, Sarah has got quite a bit of background on some of the symbology there. So we'll hear more from Sarah shortly. One of the things I wanted to just move the context back to, we've got a ceremony and ritual that's taking place right before our eyes at halftime. The reason we're saying this is for the last how many years we've seen that exact thing. The videos are out there on the internet.
If you get a chance, I wanted to add to that part in regards to the game today, to the symbology of the game. If you want to go back to that, I believe the Patriots are going to win. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to win this year, and it's all to bring on the controversy. Super Bowl games are developed to foreshadow future events. What they do is they put two teams together who are there to compete against each other, and usually whatever standards occur and whatever variables are within the game is what usually transpires for the following year. Now, one of the interesting things that Sarah said was in regards to the colors of the teams, and one of the things that I did notice is that the Seattle Seahawks do have a common color that was used a lot this year, and that was during the Ebola crisis. Everything was fluorescent and green and blue, and now with the situation, they don't have to say that Tom Brady cheated if he's not going to win. So, in other words, the controversy needs to occur. But what it's only been is always a dynamic that occurs during the Super Bowl that doesn't occur in any other sport. It's not only the biggest television audience in the world, but it also provides a halftime show, and these halftime shows have been kind of crazy within the past, I would say, 6 to 7 to 8 years, trailing back over to Michael Jackson. But the most important part of what I see is that when it comes to sporting events, when it comes to like the Super Bowl, there's only been 3 Super Bowls in which both teams represent an animal mascot. It's always some kind of, it could be a dolphin, it could be a Seahawk, which is similar to a seagull. But it's hardly that it's Seahawks against the Ravens. It will always be a historical figure within that line. And there's a reason that they follow that trend into the year after the ritual performed. We can go back to that, I guess, when we start moving forward. But there are a couple of examples of prior Super Bowls that are just very genuine. That you cannot miss out on that. It really.
Yeah, there certainly is, David. There's plenty of those examples in those prior ones, and that's probably well. Firstly, for the viewers, that was David Nazir, and again, we'll hear more from David soon.
I apologize.
No worries. I'm just trying to work my way through everyone so that we share with the listeners who we've got here. So, for example, Freeman Fly is joining us here. He has done a number of videos which really go into detail on some of what's going on behind the scenes here. The thing I wanted to introduce to the viewers here is we've got a ritual event that's going on right before our eyes that for a large amount of the population, some of the 100+ million viewers, that is the advertised statistic of who engage with the Super Bowl, and the halftime show, is that this ritual and ceremony is taking place right before our eyes and is designed and intended to utilize sinister energies and for you to contribute as well. And the aspect that I'm inviting you to consider is that your free will is being abrogated. Unless the ticket that you got for your participation, for turning up for the Super Bowl or watching this on TV or at the live event, said, we're going to utilize your energies and we're going to channel it through a celebrity who has a demonic possession and we're utilizing it for a sinister agenda, then what was taking place hasn't been advised to you, hasn't been disclosed. So, Freeman, if I'll cross over to you in a sec, where we're going here is that we've got this event that really is abrogating people's free will. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
Well,
My control source for you.
don't go away right now. We're on camera. Yeah, the entire situation at this point is social engineering, and honestly, Jamie wrote the book on social engineering, and I wish it were over here. To express this very idea that we are sitting in this situation where we have a dominant force controlling the media that is then putting this information into us and coercing the society into what is really blatantly a satanic society once you understand the tenets of Satanism. And that is not
preferences and whims. And this is what dark occultists of all kinds believe, that if this is something that will work out with us on top, then we're going to do it, and that makes it right, because it worked out for us. And if it's something that we don't benefit from, then we see that as wrong. That's something that's wrong in our eyes. Moral relativism is extremely widespread because most people in our culture have bought into this satanic tenet and believe that that right and wrong is a construct that exists in the minds of man, and we can decide based on our likes and preferences what right and wrong behavior are in any given culture at any given time. The third tenet of Satanism is social Darwinism, and this is an extension of the other two tenets of self-preservation being the highest law and right and wrong being able to be arbitrarily decided by mankind. Social Darwinism is the idea. It comes out of a Darwinistic evolutionary theory about survival of the fittest, and this is just taken into the human realm. And since mankind is seen by Satanists as being just another animal, essentially, they look at that it is right and just for the most ruthless of humanity to come out on top because their genes, their DNA got them to that point and made them the fittest in society, and so therefore they should basically rule over everyone else. This leads into the slippery slope of the fourth pillar or tenet of Satanism, which is eugenics. It's something that many people haven't studied and aren't aware of and don't know what it is, but they really need to become firmly aware of it because it's going on in our culture. It has been for thousands of years, and the people who are really in control of our society firmly believe in eugenics and practice it. Eugenics is the idea that those who have been gifted with somehow this idea of the superior genetics because they've come to rule the roost of society, if you will, through their superior intellect and genetics. That ruling class then gets to determine who can breed and who may not, or in other words, who may live and who must die. Those are the essential four tenets or main pillars of satanic ideology, and I would suggest that not just dark occultists who are in hierarchical satanic networks and who are in positions of being in the ruling class in society are the only ones who subscribe to those belief systems. I would suggest that hundreds of millions of people worldwide are actually followers of satanic tenet systems of belief, and they don't even realize it. They are Satanists. They have been indoctrinated into believing in satanic ideology without even understanding that that's what their ideology is.
I'd like to jump in here before we go too far and presence a few things with Mark. Because so much is of what is being shared here is also an experiential aspect of our own experiences. So Mark, you are speaking from a place of having been involved with the Church of Satan, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Deborah. I formerly was involved in my youth in dark occultism, Satanism in particular, because of my verbal espousal of satanic principles and tenets earlier in my life through writing and through music. I was appointed to a priesthood in an organization on the west coast of the United States known as the Church of Satan by the then high priest, who is now deceased, named Anton LaVey. LaVey recognized some of the work that I was doing in spreading satanic thought and ideology in society in my youth, and he appointed me to a priesthood in that organization. I then became involved in Satanism in a wider sense, not just through the Church of Satan organization, but satanic groups, networks, grottos, which is what they call their covens, in my entire tri-state area, and became acutely aware that there were Satanists who were in positions of influence and power who were taking part in these grottos or covens and taking part in satanic rituals in this entire tri-state area that were in positions of power and influence in every single solitary social institution and walk of life that you could possibly think of, including education, arts, media, law enforcement, judges, politicians, bankers, lawyers, doctors, school teachers. You name the institution, even, of course, music and entertainment. Every single social institution and walk of life that you could think of, there were Satanists involved in it at high-level positions of influence and power. And they had been put there by this hierarchical network of dark occultists who understand how the human psyche works and the human motivations work, and understand the hidden or spiritual laws of nature, and are essentially trying to overthrow the real spiritual laws that exist in this world, in the universe, so that they can essentially rule the earth and turn its people into nothing but slaves and keep them in a state of enslavement forever.
Exactly. Okay, and one more point before we move on. This is for the viewers that I just want to weave into what we're saying here. What we're sharing, what Mark is indicating and sharing here is that when you think about the way that the Satanists think, if they are out for themselves and only out for themselves, and that they want to be at the top of the pyramid, and if these are the people that are right now in high position of authority in every walk of our life, in every institution, and that includes law enforcement, judges, entertainment industry, if it is their intention, and this is all deception, this is all being hidden, this is a religion that is...
Welcome everyone to the first Counter Protocol of Light event. This event is focused around the ceremonies and rituals of the Super Bowl halftime show 2015. Together with Deborah Pietsch, I'm Scott Bartle, and from Wake Up Shifters Happening TV, we would like to welcome our panel presenters. We have today Sean Stone, Freeman Fly, Jamie Hanshaw, Patrick Henningson, Sarah Adams, David Nazir, and Mark Passio, and hopefully I've said their names correctly there. Firstly, as an introduction, I'll hand it back to Deb, who is going to give us a bit of a context and introduction to where we want to go with this Counter Protocol of Light event, and then we'll open up and let it flow. All yours, Deb.
Thank you. So, thank you for being here. First of all, for the people that are viewing, and also to the amazing panel, the amazing roundtable of guests that we have here today. And as Scott was saying, this is the first event that is a Counter Protocol of Light event. And so, as we begin, I thought it was important for us to set the context to what is going on and why we even were guided to create this show and this event. One of the things that is important to note is that this didn't just come out of like our decision to just come out and talk about this. Because of being telepathic and the daily communication that we do, especially that I do with our guides, that this is part of a strategy that Scott and I have been working on behind the scenes very diligently for the last year, that is very multidimensional strategy to support humanity, and to support humanity at a time right now where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of disinformation, and I'm even going to go so far as to say that our awakening has been hijacked. And we refer to that as the designed assault against humanity's awakening. And so about a month ago, in one of our daily tune-ins with our team that we talk to every day, and it came in that for us to start doing counter-protocol events, and that the Super Bowl would be the first one. And so that's how this came about. So a couple things just to presence here is that this is experiential transformational media. You as the viewer are here to engage however you choose, and we're going to ask you to be accountable to whatever you are experiencing. This subject and the subjects that we're going to touch upon today are vast and often considered taboo, and are also often not ever really covered in a full context of connecting the dots of how these are affecting every aspect of our daily lives. So we're going to endeavor to bring forth to you that there is, as we're weaving the information, that there is the awareness of the macrocosm, and then also the awareness of the microcosm of how this can and may be affecting every aspect of your daily life. And we're talking about the flow of resources, we're talking about abundance, we're talking about the divine feminine. There's all sorts of the entertainment industry, the music industry, the film industry, media, mainstream media. So my invitation, our invitation to you is to be really accountable to what you're experiencing as we start to talk about these. You may have emotional charges, you may have beliefs that get triggered. And so it's an opportunity for you to engage with yourself and even journal or write down some of the things that you might be being triggered by. The point of our communication with all of this is not to be right about anything. It is here. We are here to provide a context of information and insights, and then to connect dots that you may not be connecting, that you may not have connected, so that you can have aha moments, and that you can even distinguish between beliefs and programs that might not be serving you in your highest good. So we're asking for you to engage, to have an open heart, to receive, and to also, one of the questions we're going to leave you with as we begin is, what is your relationship to free will? If you haven't thought about free will as a conscious, and having a conscious relationship with free will, perhaps today might be the start of that. And that as we're engaging with this conversation today, which is focused around the Super Bowl, which we've come to understand and be aware that this is it's probably the largest public ceremony ritual events that we have right now. And to understand, without having an emotional charge or judgment, how and why this is going on and how it's affecting our lives. And so the opportunity and the invitation is for you to engage with your free will. And now when we go into the halftime show, we're going to enter into the experiential part of this. Now, those of you that have already experienced the activations or the clearings that Scott and I do, you're going to be familiar with it. we're going to guide you through everything, including talking through the clearing, talking through the activation. But you are encouraged to engage with your free will and your higher self to bring forth and invoke what is in your highest good. So I just thought that it was important for us to set the stage and to set the context as we delve into some pretty amazing subjects, and some of it is going to get pretty dark. So what we get to do is we get to shine the light on it. We get to hold the space of love, and if this resonates with you, that we are proclaiming from this day forward that this is a planet of love, and that whatever is, and that we are conduits of that love. We are conduits of the light. We are beings of light, and that we are standing in a collective consciousness and proclaiming that this planet is a planet of love, and that anything that is not in alignment with that gets to have a checks and balance, and that we are here to level the playing field and to bring things back into balance. So thank you for being here. Thank you for playing with us, dancing with us, and let the games begin.
Thanks,
Scott?
Deb. Yep. Okay, got the ball. So, thank you for that, and bear with us as well as some of the, we have the odd technical challenge here. We'll endeavour to keep it ticking along quite nicely. Perhaps we start this one. We've got quite a panel of presenters here. Sean Stone, host of the alternative media show Buzzsaw, is joining us, and let's perhaps start with Sean. One of the things you mentioned before the show was just as a bit of a humorous point of, okay, who do you think is going to win this game from the perspective of the symbology as perhaps an opener to what we're talking about. Sean, do you want to say a couple of words on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, obviously, to sort of assess people's ability to decode, right? I don't consider myself an expert when it comes to decoding, but I'm obviously very interested by the nature of symbols. And so, obviously, the choice of Seahawks versus Patriots, I would say just from the media point of view, we've seen a lot of the notion around the deflate gate with the Patriots, right? The fact that they cheated in some capacity in the last game. So it's almost as though they're setting the Patriots up in a certain sense to lose, because they can't really win honorably, you know, regardless. If they win now, they still cheated to get there, right? And so they almost in a sense have to lose. That's kind of the way that I see it. So I do predict the Seahawks winning this game. But I'd be curious to know what everyone else thinks, more from like the codes and the symbols of the Seahawks and Patriots and what those teams represent, colors-wise, names-wise, you know, historically, that kind of thing.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I've got one point to make to add to what Sean said regarding the Seattle Seahawks. Their logo is a Seahawk, and that's based on an Inuit Pacific Navajo tribe representation of that bird. So again, this add to the symbolism. That might just be background, Sean, but it is interesting. And looking at the Patriots symbology, what that symbolizes as well. That's an aspect that we often overlook.
I think it's going to be...
Oh, sorry, Sarah, one second.
I want to jump in there.
I was going to introduce Patrick. For those who haven't seen Patrick's work, he was the founder of the 21stCenturyWire.com website. He's appeared on RT News, written for The Guardian, Global Research, InfoWars. So he's been in the alternative media scene for quite some time. And Patrick, if you want to add anything more to that, and then I'll jump over to Sarah there.
No, that's right. I might disagree with Sean's prediction on who's going to win. Because the Patriots cheated to get there, then you'd want to reward the evil party. So I'm going to back the New England Patriots, Sean.
Sarah, Do you want to jump in from there?
That's a very interesting point you just brought up there. But you know what? It's interesting looking at these Seahawks because I brought them up on my phone here, and the colors is very interesting because you've got the New England Patriots, by the way, that have red and blue, which so is the red and blue is bloodlines. And then you have the Seattle Seahawks, which like I said, I think it represents the Horus figure or the Christ figure. And I think also that England, the New England, with New England, like I said, England has the lineage of the ancient Egyptian bloodlines who came over here to England, and the United States is all built in such a manner on a the Freemasons built the United States so they could access all the points instead of having to travel around the world and access them. They built it all into the United States, which was amazingly brilliant. And then now I think with the different teams from the different states, they're according to different places in the world. It's accessing different portals whenever they.
It's such a big story to try and unveil in this situation, but what you end up seeing on top of the social engineering aspects of this situation is the occult rituals that are performed within these situations. And so Jamie and I have been unveiling those type of situations for a decade now on freemantv.com, showing over and over again the occult aspects of these rituals, like we're going to see with Katy Perry and Lenny Kravitz at the halftime show, to the point where we had started to express to the public the different ideals and understanding inside of Satanism and the Ordo Templi Orientis, one of the main magical orders that infiltrated Hollywood and the music industry. You will find all of the musicians members of this magical order, the OTO. And then we will show you through their own works and through the own magic practices how these signs and symbols work and what their intents are. And you'll really be blown away when you start to recognize these occult symbols and signs that are becoming so blatant now that people are going, oh, they're Illuminati this, Illuminati that. When Jamie and I have sought out desperately and very determinatively to re-explain and de-occult those signs, symbols, and magic rituals that are being performed. So as a classic example of a satanic ritual happening at a Super Bowl, we go back to the Madonna. When she performed at the Super Bowl, she called it a 33-minute sermon. Now, Madonna is a high priestess Kabbalist. Okay, Kabbalism is the magic that is being practiced in this situation, and she is one of the high priestesses. So when she came out on the Super Bowl, she said that she was performing a 33-minute sermon, and within this sermon, she depicted herself as these numerous gods. And I don't know if you have that image that I gave you there. She displayed what is known, according to these magical orders, the mark of the beast. Now, most people don't have any idea what the mark of the beast looks like to a magical order. And it's actually the X-Men logo, the Xbox logo, or Macintosh's new operating system logo. It is the O and the X. I can show it to you on the back of a Satanist's head. You know, this is not something, and Crowley of the OTO, Aleister Crowley, would actually brand that O and X into his scarlet women, the ritual women that they would use in these magical practices. And that mark of the beast was displayed by Madonna on the stage so many times that I could barely count. Now, those that were following Freeman TV, they knew immediately when they saw Madonna displaying these signs and symbols. And so, yeah, it's there, it's intentional, it's purposeful, and even the actors and actresses or the performers such as Madonna know exactly what their intent is when they're performing such rituals.
Right. Now, that's good. I got that image up on the screen there. Now, the thing you mentioned earlier on in that piece was the tenets of Satanism. Now, if I can jump over to Mark, I recall you did an interview with Vinnie Eastwood back in 2012, where you were describing those tenets literally as the inversion of everything that we see in society, that the good becomes bad, the right becomes wrong. And like I think Freeman showed in one of his videos, where Madonna was desensitizing the population to lesbianism and homosexuality. Did you want to mention about those tenets of Satanism there?
Absolutely. Satanism is something that most people don't understand in the slightest bit, insofar as they've been conditioned to believe it has something to do with the worship of Christian archetypal imagery, such as the Christian devil. And this isn't really what modern-day Satanism is about. Modern-day Satanism is an ideology that is lived in one's life. It's a set of overarching belief systems, which you could simply refer to as tenets or foundational principles in their belief, pillars of their belief system, if you will. The first tenet is simply that all you concern yourself with is yourself, your own comfort, your own creature comforts, your own self-preservation, and your own advancement. That is what we see generally widespread in all of society, me thinking. Thinking that is purely selfish and oriented towards service to self only, without any compassion for the widespread suffering that is going on in our society and throughout the world. This first tenet is taken into a hyperdrive by Satanists, you could say. It's the first tenet is basically that self-preservation is the highest aspiration of the individual and should be practiced, and one should concern themselves with it at all times and places. Do whatever you have to get ahead on someone else. Do whatever you have to get a leg up on other people, regardless of whose rights or freedoms you may have to step on in order to do so. If it's right for you, then it's right. If it's wrong for you, then it's something you should steer clear of. That leads right into the second tenet of Satanism, which is moral relativism. Moral relativism is also extremely widespread in society. It's the belief that there is no such thing as objective principles of right and wrong behavior that are actually inherent to nature, that exist in reality, and that man can just arbitrarily decide right and wrong for himself, based upon his own likes